This will literally blow your...
Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to another foil stream, doing 2 in a row. This one's a little more casual though. I wanted to watch some slow stuff. Usually Tinfoil Tuesday I try to keep things interesting, so every 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes or so there's a switch up. Today, long, boring tinfoil things. Okay, not boring, but they're not as snappy. So if you have ADHD, maybe get something else. Maybe get a game you're doing while listening to this with me. Because some of them might be a little less viscerally crazy at first, but it will be nonetheless an interesting look into more long, thoughtful, quote-unquote thoughtful conspiracy stuff. So, it'll be good. How's everyone doing? Halloween Town, I will do my best to bless the rest of your week so that it's better. Sorry you're having a rough time. I know tomorrow you asked for a chill stream, and I will do my best to provide. So tomorrow I'll try and have kind of a chill thing. Maybe we'll do a VHS thing, or if there's something that you like in particular, let me know and I'll see what I can do. So, let's just get into it. If you're on YouTube, do me a favor and like the stream. Other than that, let's just jump into some stuff, shall we? What did I want to start with? Terrence Howard is fun. Apparently the whack job, like, conspiracy folks have, found out Terrence Howard thinks he reinvented math and they're taking it seriously, which is a shame.
your mind. Terrence Howard is about to reveal the extraordinary impact of hidden frequency rhythms, a secret long held by ancient civilizations and now gaining modern attention.
I've spent 45 years searching these things out and trying to figure out what the universe really, how it really worked. I want you guys to know about a 6,000-year-old secret. 6,000 years.
Early 2000s nostalgia tomorrow. I'll see what I can do.
Mankind has been trying to decipher this one little thing called the flower of life. This is one of the oldest symbols in human history, right? This symbol was found in the Temple of Osiris in Egypt, and it had been molecularly burned into the wall.
Molecularly burned. By that he means it was etched into the wall.
6,000 years old. The same symbol has been found in the forbidden temples in China.
Is he a self-taught math scholar? If we really stretch the definitions of scholar and break the definitions of math, then yes.
Sitting under the foo-foo dogs, and the foot on it, the flower of life.
The foo-foo dogs, Terrence. There's a word for that. I don't know it either, but I'm also not pretending that I know math. Professor Daddy, thanks for 20 months, says neat.
Controlled that flower of life, controlled the universe. There were secrets in that flower of life that Da Vinci spent his whole life trying to uncover. There were secrets in that flower of life that Newton spent his whole life in secret trying to uncover.
But look at that dumbass, just inventing calculus like a fucking loser.
Trying to find a way to bring this.
Should have followed Terrence. He knows what he's talking about. Was Isaac Newton even in a Marvel movie? I don't think so. Loser.
Flower to life, because what is inside of it? Well, apparently there were secrets inside of it. Shapes, they got the Merkaba and all of those other things out of it. But they were misled by something I think called a straight line. You believe there's straight lines in the universe? Well, let me hit you with something. All energy in the universe.
Like an imaginary closest distance in three-dimensional space between any 2 points is a line. It's geometry. It's a descriptor. Are you asking if, like, shapes are real?
versus expressed in what? It's in motion. If something is still, there's no energy. Kinetic, right? All motion is expressed in what? You look at galaxies, are they expressed in straight lines? Expressed in vortices. All vortices are...
You could describe any distance between 2 points as a straight line. What are you talking about? Yes, straight lines exist in nature, hypothetically. What are you talking about?
expressed in what? Waves. All waves are curved. Show me a straight line in nature. You show me where the platonic solids come from. Where do they have their foundations in our universe?
Math! Math. Math, Terrence.
Are there any straight lines? If you look at anything, there are no straight lines. That's been the mistake. We've been looking at these straight lines, this Euclidean way of thinking, and
Terrence, we also know how to describe non-straight things mathematically and geometrically, but that's more complicated. But we can do that. Oh, God. H-Beard, thank you for 38 months, says I'm fine with straight lines as long as they don't shove their lifestyle in my face.
missing the curvature of nature. So here we are, back with the curvature of nature. And you have all these little pieces. Now, this has always been an information system. Compare some of these points, take a point here, and say, well, what's the space in between all of these things? Now, they've said that all the in-between spaces, if this is the Earth and this is the moon right here, all this in-between space is filled with what? A void. There's nothing in the void.
No, I mean, space is a vacuum, but like there are little particles of things, in particular between the Earth and the moon, because there's like shit. There's satellites. There's like pieces of the atmosphere, little bits that are there. I think recently I read a thing that said they found particles of the atmosphere slightly beyond the Earth even. Very little, of course, like not enough to do anything practically, but like still, you can find little bits of things there. But yeah, practically speaking, it's a vacuum, Terrence. What's your point?
Well, I found that there is something in the void. The elementary fundamental particles that they've been searching for at the CERN Collider, the Hadron Collider in CERN, I found that their energy signatures matched perfectly to some of the pieces that I was able to pull out of here.
What do you mean matched perfectly? In that they were lines?
They couldn't get it out of this two-dimensional frame, and as a result, they got stuck in this plane, a flat plane. But all of these wave conjugations, all of these states of matter,
Conjugations?
all of these things, there's time, it's time for that to be changed now. We have changed all of our buildings to be aerodynamic. Our airplanes are no longer based on a two-dimensional Euclidean way of life.
What?
But our math is still based on a two-dimensional way.
What?
And I think in order for us to reach the future, we have to examine that. Do you guys know about loops in math? Do you believe in loops? Do you know the square root of 2? Do you think that's a loop? Do you believe that the square root of 2 is the square root of 2? I want y'all to take out your phone for a minute then. We're gonna do one thing. Put it on the calculator and turn it to the side so you can get all the long numbers out of it. Now I want you to put
the long numbers?
in 2 and square root it. 2, hit the square root, you'll get 1.414213562373.
DM Trey, thank you for gifting 5 tier 1 subs. How you doing, Trey?
095 ... right? Now I want you guys to do...
Who's the worst, Terrence, Terrence K. Williams, Terrence Pop, or Terrence Howard? Ooh. I'm gonna say Terrence Pop because he might actually do a terrorism someday. Only time will tell, though.
Do me a favor, cube it. It'll see right over there, it'll be x to the 3. It'll see 2.8284271 2174 6190. Now that makes sense. I want you guys to do me a favor, divide it by 2. Got that number? Cube it again, divide it by 2, cube it again, and I want you to do that until the end of your lives. And that number will still come up with 2.8284271 2174 6190. Any other number that you, above 2, that you put in and you cube and you square, cube and divide by 2, by the 6th operation, it has moved into an exponential number that you can't even imagine. Any number below 2 that you do that same operation with, it will go into an exponentially small matter and number. This is what we call a loop. It is illogical, it doesn't make sense, and it does not.
Yeah, he multiplied it by 2. I'm confused.
Make math make sense. So these
Make math make sense.
are some things that
Cube 2, hypercube. No, Cube 3 was hypercube.
I'm
I
bringing to
think.
the
I've seen the Cube movies. The Cube movies are pretty good. Where's my Cube film box set, Arrow?
fore, and that I would like to question. I would like to audit.
I was disappointed by the hypercube. It didn't live up to its name. I missed the original Cube. Cube 2 is Cube Squared, which is a hilarious name, right? It's Cube 2, but it's like it's written like cube to the power of 2, like squared. At least I think. No, 2 was hypercube? Is Cube 3 to the power of 3 cubed? Did they do Cube cubed for Cube 3? If you haven't seen the Cube movies, I'd recommend them. They're good.
The math, the world of mathematics, and I would like to
If they didn't call Cube 3 Cube cubed, what are we even doing?
audit how we view the Platonic solids, because I think the
The original is still the best. I know they did, I think they did a Korean remake of the original recently that I heard was good, but I haven't seen it.
new wave conjugations will tell a better story of how our world works. For our
Why is the actor trying to teach math he doesn't understand? Does he not understand it, or does everyone else not understand it? Because he's just so ahead of his time. I don't know. He needs help. He's been doing this. He literally went to like a country in Africa a couple years ago and tried to like sell people on this. I'm concerned. I'm concerned for Terrence Howard.
DNA is made up of what? 5 elements, right?
Does anyone know Kevin Bacon? Because we can probably get Terrence Howard some help. And Kevin Bacon knows everyone within at least like 7 people. So he probably gets called for interventions a lot.
Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and oxygen. Do you know how they're arranged? The phosphorus sits right here in the middle, and you've got 4 oxygen atoms surrounding it. Then there's another phosphorus, 2 more oxygen atoms. Now,
Cube 3 was Cube 0. Cube 0 is a terrible name. Where's my cube cubed?
these are the legs of that double helix. These are the legs. Now, the ladder steps on it, they become...
I'm sorry, why did we go from DNA? Why are we on DNA now? You were talking about the structure of a specific molecule, and now you're on DNA?
the adenine, the guanine, the cytosine, and thymine, the ATCGs. It turns out...
To be fair, math can be weird at times, and then it's an X KCD comic. Numbers of the form n, the square root of n to -1 are imaginary, but can still be used in equations. Okay, and e to the power of pi with the square root of -1 equals 1. Now you're just fucking with me. See, I don't even know enough about math to get the joke. Like, to me, that meant nothing to me. My funny bone wasn't tickled even a little. It meant nothing.
Hydrogen, they used to think that energy, the body transferred or understood the energy information through electricity. They're finding out it's through frequency. Well, guess what hydrogen sounds like? It's the key of E. Guess what?
What do you mean hydrogen's the key of E? That's a non sequitur. You can't just say a hydrogen atom is in a certain musical key. What does that mean?
And it's the color yellow. That
Synesthesia? Fucking what? So this element you are claiming is in E major, and that is the color yellow. Okay, cool.
proper physics gets you to. Oxygen is a chartreuse, and it's the key of F over F sharp. Now, they used to, like I said, information used to be thought about as just electrical information passing on. But I got a question for you.
By
Have you ever been
whom?
at a party with some of your friends you ain't seen in 10 years, but y'all was like 14, you hung out, and there's a song that came on, and you was like, ah, and everybody got up and was live at that moment. Now, say 10 years later, you got a friend with you, He's a good guy, but he wasn't there when me and my boys formed this. So when that song comes on, our DNA tightens. There's a particular song, a scale in the genomes for each and every one of us. Now, when that song is played, when your particular prime resonant frequency is played, guess what happens? Your DNA celebrates and tightens. Everything else gets pushed out. Harmonic waves.
Your DNA tightens and everything gets pushed out. I want to know what he means, because to him that means something. It seems like he's trying to get across camaraderie, and he's trying to make that some sort of scientific, visceral thing. He's trying to, as a lot of conspiracies do, take the internal emotional state and make it concrete by developing a metaphor that sounds scientific. Trying to take their vibes and describe it in a material, scientific sounding thing. But he's taking it 10,000% seriously.
Wave resequencing. The carbon is also the key of E and yellow.
Carbon is in the key of E and yellow. Okay.
The nitrogen is G. And all these play a song. So say that the F over F sharps of the oxygen, the green, is only hitting at an F. Why? Because there's another frequency coming in from a generator over there. That's changing and causing it to change. And when the F hits the carbon, instead of hitting as an F sharp, it hits as an F, so when it hits the carbon at an E, it doesn't hit it quite right, so the domino don't file right. So the next domino hits wrong. And so now we have malformation happening within our DNA because the frequencies are being.
The other... Oh no! For those who don't know, we did watch this full address once before it was edited like this. He was brought to this school to talk about acting, because Terrence Howard is, if you're not familiar, he's an actor. He was in a decent number of movies. He was in the first Iron Man. He did stuff before that, but that's what I mainly remember him from. Sorry. So he was brought to talk about acting, and he just went on this diatribe about what he thinks is new physics and math that he discovered. It's like legit a conspiratorial mental illness, like, rant, but being delivered by a rich and famous actor in front of a bunch of college students. It's quite bizarre. It's a really good illustration of how fame and, like, wealth insulate you from consequences, too. Because, like, if someone who was, like, this mentally ill and, like, let's say was homeless and giving the same rant, like, they would be locked up. But Terrence Howard was invited here because he's rich and famous, and he goes on this diatribe in a college and is just posted to YouTube and taken seriously by conspiracy people? It's a shame. It's a shame. Again, I remind you, he's been trying to sell this to people too. It's not just that he's, like, needs help, which he clearly does. He's trying to sell this to people. He's gone to other countries to claim that using this information, he's inventing new energy sources. It's a whole thing.
Pushed off. But when we hear our tone, we tighten back up. But I wanted you guys to understand how that works. It's so simple. You do not need to tear the human body apart when all you can do is use frequency to bring it back to its normal space.
Discover how these powerful frequencies, once embedded in the fabric of traditional cultures, are making a dramatic comeback.
Again, what do they... powerful frequencies! I hear this constantly in conspiracy circles, more and more lately. This vague idea of frequencies, of sound waves. If you were watching a movie or something, it would be visualized by, like, wow, 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 sound wave special effect. You know what I'm talking about. Like, if you ever seen a DC animated thing where, like, Black Canary or something does, like, a voice attack and it's just, like, disturbed airwaves. Like, it's like that symbolic idea made literal, except that doesn't exist in real life in the way they are describing.
We're on the brink of rediscovering ancient wisdom, possibly explaining a significant shift.
That's literal ancient wisdom on the bingo card. I wasn't planning on playing bingo. The ancient wisdom literally said by name.
In the music industry, the intriguing transition from the harmonious 432 Hz to the standard 440 Hz in musical tuning. Perhaps this growing understanding sheds light on a significant shift in the music industry. The change in standard tuning of musical instruments from 432 Hz to 440 Hz. This subtle yet profound alteration begs the question, was this simply a matter of standardization, or is there more to this story?
DM Trey says, this is a perfect example of people caught in the loop of being fractally wrong. They come to bad conclusions based on wrong information, and they use those bad conclusions to come to more bad conclusions over and over and over and over and over. Yeah.
The standard tuning pitch, often referred to as a concert pitch, has varied throughout history. The tuning of A equals 432 Hz is said by some to be more harmonically aligned with the universe, and the
said by some vacuous citation.
Natural resonance
Illusory citation
of the human body. They often connect to ideas like those expressed by Terrence Howard, suggesting that there is a harmonic language embedded within our DNA.
How? How does that, what do you mean? How does that indicate that in any way? Explain, don't just say it.
To be played in the right key. The shift to 440 Hz occurred around the 20th century and has since become the accepted standard for tuning musical instruments. Some conspiracy theorists suggest that this was done with the knowledge that it would cause disharmony, anxiety,
that doesn't even make sense. Do whatever you want to an instrument, what the fuck?
And a more aggressive response in the population. They argue that this decision allegedly spearheaded by figures like Joseph Goebbels.
What? Fucking what? And also, you pronounced that so weird.
The Nazi minister of propaganda was a form of psychological manipulation. Nevertheless, the debate rages on. On one side, there are music theorists, historians, and musicians who contend that the difference in frequency is too slight to affect human consciousness in the way conspiracists claim. On the other, there are those who feel that the difference resonates through—
There are those who feel. Even as a bad citation, that's a bad citation. Even so, there are some who feel insert nonsense.
Every note, affecting mood, consciousness, and even physical health. The controversy surrounding the tuning of music raises a fundamental question. Why are frequencies so important? If the difference of a few hertz in tuning can be the subject of such intense debate—
It's only a subject of debate for whack jobs.
Suggests a belief in the intrinsic power of frequency that resonates through history, from the chants of Gregorian monks to the tuning of Tibetan singing bowls.
Recognizing the importance and cultural significance of music in human history is not the same as claiming it as magic powers, which is what you are doing.
Belief is not only—
That would be like me saying, well, clothing has been a part of human culture and history forever, so maybe clothing is a magical, symbolic thing that'll lead us to enlightenment. Like, that doesn't mean anything. You can pick any arbitrary piece of culture and, like, attribute, like, things to it, but you're doing that. It's not intrinsic. You are bringing ideas to it and using that as a vessel for your conspiracy beliefs. Cloud Wizard says, ooh, I know this one. We shifted from justified tuning, which made instruments tuned to specific keys, to equal tuning so that it could be in any key.
only cultural—
Thanks, Cloud Wizard.
but also increasingly scientific as researchers delve into the effects of sound on the human body and consciousness. The importance of frequencies in music might extend beyond more preference or historical precedent. It taps into the very way our brains process sound waves, the vibrations they create, and how these can influence our emotional and psychological states. Some studies suggest that music tuned to certain frequencies may enhance mood or cognition, although more research is needed to establish definitive effects. As we ponder the implications of Terrence Howard's assertions and the historical shift in music tuning, it becomes clear—
Just imagining your world being turned upside down by something Terrence Howard said once.
that to
And you're like, I need the answers, the yellow notes. They called me.
understand the full impact, we need to venture deeper into the science of sound. It's within the realms of acoustics, neuroscience—
Acoustics? Alright. Enough of that. Thanks for the Terrence Howard thing. This was a while back when he went to another country and was trying to sell this shit to people.
You know, I was born
Uganda.
Terrence Deshaun Howard. I've become an actor. You know, I've been nominated for an Oscar.
If Americans could stop going to, like, Uganda or other places in Africa and scamming people and fucking shit up, that would be awesome.
Oscars and Golden Globes and
Hey,
SAG Awards, but those weren't the things that really moved me. As a child, I studied chemical engineering at Pratt Institute, was there for 2 years until I saw that there was an inconsistency with the math there. And so I went out to explore a new way of understanding how the universe worked, and I was able to...
To be clear, this started because, if you haven't seen the original video, Terrence doesn't understand why 1 times 1 equals 1. He thinks 1 times 1 should equal 2. And that started all this off, or at least that's what he claims.
Define the grand unified field equation they've been looking for and put it into geometry. And then with that geometry, I was able to put props on that. And what I'm saying is now we have invented a new form of flight that I would like to bring here to Uganda to replace the drones, to replace the helicopters, to replace the planes. We have all the funding necessary. What we need is just a fertile ground in which to build this. Now, this is the geometry of hydrogen. Of hydrogen.
Hydrogen.
This is the proton itself. So any bond
It's the proton.
that hydrogen can make, our linchpins are able to make.
And did he just say any proton that hydrogen can make?
Any bond
Any bond that hydrogen can make.
that hydrogen can make, our linchpins are able to make. So we're talking about unlimited bonding.
Unlimited bonding.
Unlimited predictable
We are going to have an economy backed by infinite bondage.
structures, supersymmetry, and the linchpins are now able to behave as a swarm, as a colony that can defend a nation, that can harvest food, that can remove plastics from the ocean, that can give the children of Uganda and the people of Uganda
Mr. Blast did an ooh-woo.
an opportunity to spread this and to sell these products throughout the world, so we are no longer just selling agricultural products and pieces from the land. We can now sell and take center stage with technology. But the main purpose is to defend the sovereignty of a peaceful place and a
You
peaceful
are hip, okay? You're the hippest.
people without having
You're the hippity hoppinest.
to have our young men lose their lives.
Oh, Terrence. Terrence. And then he went on The View one time and tried it.
And it's where 12 peoples meet equally and oppositely.
touch it?
Yes. And it's where 12
So that was something. Oh, is this when he was trying to do the thing? Yeah, he did a contest for people to design drones for him. So that's what Terrence has been up to. Not like great, to be honest.
life, nature of is
I haven't seen new stuff from him in a while about this, so I do hope at some point someone pushed him into getting help, because he needs it. Anyway, let's see, what are some other conspiracy things we can take a look at?
So Dave, welcome back. It's been, well, I did actually, for people that don't know, I actually got to finally meet Dave in person, and that actually wasn't that long ago. So that was really cool.
Dave here on the right is a flat earther, an anti-vaxxer. He's a urine therapy guy, aka he drinks his own pee-pee and rubs it on himself and thinks it's like medicine. So he's got a lot of conspiracy stuff going on.
But it's been 4 years since you've been on the show. For those that
Really?
don't
To my knowledge, he does not drink, or we don't see any pee in this video, so don't worry. Even though he believes that stuff, we don't see it. I'm not making you look at pee this video.
know,
There is no pee this stream.
has it? Well, hang on. It's been 4 years since your awakening interview, but you did come on another time, didn't you? Or you called in to talk about the Mandela Effect, maybe?
Yeah, that's right. I did call in once. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not Carpcosian. I didn't. There's no pee. I promise there's no pee.
you called in once.
I know what I'm not. You know, maybe a year ago I was in a place to be funny and drive people away. Not anymore. Now I'm a people pleaser.
I was thinking that.
No more Danzy. No more pee-pee. It's just we gotta please the audience now.
But the last time you were on as a guest for a whole show, that was 4 years ago. It was in 2019 at some point.
Wow.
Yeah. So maybe even coming up on 5 years, and time has just flown by. Obviously, with what
we met
started.
we met
Hey,
here.
Phoenix Leftist, how's it going?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. You went to a Flat Earth convention. Someday I'd love to go to a Flat Earth convention.
It was
Pee-pee or pee-pee show? Both, I guess. Which is more offensive, actually watching people drink pee or watching me watch the pee-pee show in full for 3 hours? Both are painful. One's more concentrated than the other.
fabulous. And for those that don't know, Dave gave a presentation, and part of that presentation, he brought up the Mandela Effect, which obviously is very interesting to me. And I always love when more and more people start to talk about this topic. So we are going to discuss a lot of Dave's takes on the Mandela Effect today. We'll probably rewind a little bit, though, and kind of maybe go back. And we could probably start with, like, when was your kind of, when it's such a process, but when do you think your awakening journey kind of started? Like, what was a few of the first things you started questioning about the world? And then let's kind of go forward to when you first heard of the Mandela Effect, and we'll get into it.
Right. Well, my first sort of awakening was same as most people, really, 9/11. But
God damn it.
it wasn't straight away. It was about three or 4 years later when I was helping my daughter with her physics homework, and all of a sudden, light bulb went off, and I started researching and finding out that 9/11 was an inside job.
It wasn't. You're bad at research and probably got your kid bad grades on their math homework.
And that kind of led me to ask the question, well, who's behind it then? If it wasn't, Muslims with box cutters.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And that led me to the Project for the New American Century. And those people led me to the New World Order,
Yeah.
That looking at the New World Order made me look at the monetary
Overthought says before he says it, no, the beams don't need to melt. They just have to be weakened. Yep.
system.
As you guys know, I try to avoid 9/11 conspiracies. There's like 3 topics I try to avoid when possible, just because it's talked about to death, or it's so disrespectful, like, to even pretend it's like a conspiracy. Like, even to, like I can't make jokes about it, I can't. Basically, I just feel icky covering it as a main topic. So the 3 topics are 9/11 conspiracy theories, they've been done to death, anything about the Holocaust, because I'm not fucking entertaining any of that Nazi shit. Like, fuck off, Holocaust deniers, not even worth it, and AIDS denialism. Those are like the 3 I don't cover.
And that led me to the legal system and then to the healthcare system and all these systems that our lives are built around. I realized they're all connected, they're all fake, essentially, kind of fake versions of what we think they are. Just like the shape of the earth is a fake version of what it really is. So
They're really presenting us a completely fabricated reality.
It's so interesting to me how people will just, something will happen and they'll just completely fall off reality. Like, everyone's relationship with reality is tenuous at best in the first place, but, like, sometimes people just, like, something will happen, and all of a sudden they're not living in anything even approximating the real anymore. It's entirely based on fictions and denials and mythologies they pick up from conspiracy theories. That sucks.
Like as far as all their
Absolutely.
systems and what they show for history, cosmology, the money system, the medical, which we'll try and stay away from today. I mean, it just goes on and on. Everywhere you look, it turns out to be complete fabrications.
And I think I know why. Now I've kind of started to figure out why they've created an entire fantasy world around us. It's starting to make sense now. So yeah, I got into the Mandela effect while I was looking at the flat Earth, and somebody mentioned this idea, and I realized that I was
That line he had that seems a little insignificant, but he said, it finally makes sense. Revealing, I've talked about it a lot. Conspiracy theories are generally about fulfilling some psychological need. So for him, the world didn't make sense until he started believing it was full of people making a concerted effort to lie to him, and then something clicked. Mentally, the world made sense to him. It wasn't true what he believed, but it made sense to him. There's this idea in psychology, I will in a sec, Baha. I forget the exact wording, but more important than... How do I put this? Universal coherence trumps individual realities. So it's more important to your brain that the overall order of your worldview makes sense to you than it does that individual beliefs make sense with each other or even with evidence. So that overarching need for universal coherence will cause people sometimes to believe all sorts of really out there things in order to bring what feels like sense to a relatively senseless world.
was one of those people who remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison. I remember that. And then, you know, he came out of prison and became president. I remember that now. I thought, I'm sure he died. I'm sure he died. And then
You were wrong. It's actually kind of the entire thing he's famous for is going to prison. I mean, not the entire thing, but a big part of the story is that he went to prison and then got let out and became the fucking president.
and I found out about this Mandela Effect thing. And I
What
think
year was this? Would you say? Because for me, it was like you said, you know, flat Earth, and you heard about Mandela Effect. These things hit me very close at the same time. So it was like the summer of 2014. I had started looking into flat Earth. Obviously, as you know, there wasn't a lot of content out there yet. But then at like the end of 2014, early 2015, I heard of the Nelson Mandela thing and the Berenstain Bears. And as insignificant as people might think, the Berenstain Bears changed to Berenstain. I mean, that was
It didn't change. You just misremembered it. This is the thing that bugs me the most about, like, Mandela Effect conspiracies, is that it's the stupidest one. It literally is dependent on you being such a narcissist that you're incapable of understanding that you will misremember things, and that you will misremember things in a way other people misremember things because you're not unique and special. Like, everyone has pretty similar brains, you know what I mean? You're gonna have mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes will line up with other people's mistakes. It's not mystical, it's not another universe. That's it. You're just misremembering something. It's fine.
enough for me to realize.
That said, the Mandela Effect episode of the X-Files from the reboot, or from the, you know, whatever they called it, when they brought the show back for like a season or two some years ago. One of the best episodes. Really good.
Okay, I kind of understand the concept of what's going on here. And then, of course, there's bigger things like history and geography, which came a few months later for me, and I was just completely mind blown.
well, for me, I think it was late 2015, but I didn't really regard it very much. I mean, Berenstein,
Yeah.
or again, that's American. We never got,
Yeah.
we never knew it. And to my mind, I think that was a double whammy, because shouldn't it be Bernstein rather than Berenstein?
No, the joke is that it's a pun. They're bears. They're bears. They're a family of bears. So they're the Berenstain Bears. Because they're bears. It's a pun.
I remember Berenstein. I've seen people write it often though without that second E. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
You remember wrong.
But yeah, I wrote it off. I thought, yeah, I must have misremembered the you know, the Mandela thing. And the other one was, I think it was before Mandela, Star Trek, because I remember,
Oh no, is he gonna do the beam me up Scotty thing?
you know, Captain Kirk saying, "Beam me up, Scotty." He never ever
Yeah.
said that. He never said that.
He
Yeah.
said different permutations of it. Beam us up, two to beam up, whatever. But pop culturally, it gets recontextualized by people doing impressions as beam me up, Scotty. It's similar to how people remember the line in Empire Strikes Back as being, Luke, I am your father. But that's not the line. The line is, no, I am your father. He doesn't say, Luke, I am your father. He says, no, I am your father, because within the context of the conversation, that's how it flows in the script. But let's say you're playing Darth Vader, you're at a Halloween party and you're Darth Vader and you're doing an impression, you're not just going to say, no, I'm your father, because that doesn't sound right. So you say, Luke, I am your father. The Luke gives the context to the scene you're doing. You know what I mean? Play it again, Sam. Yeah. There are a lot of movie lines like that where the actual lines are different, but when people say them with no context, they change them slightly, and those changes become iconic in their own right, even if they were never said directly in the work. Again, that's not magic, it's not Mandela Effect, it's just how memes work.
But yeah, I got that one. I thought, well, maybe I misremembered again, but it wasn't until I saw C3PO with a silver leg.
He looks so ridiculous, man. Especially in the Ewok village when he's up in the chariot and he's got this silver leg now.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that we all missed that is just preposterous.
You just didn't remember it. That's actually like a pretty famous thing. What? Like, I remember that. What are you talking about? You can get little toys with it from the time too? What?
I mean, when they brought the prequel out, they had what was it?
You probably didn't notice as much too watching it on like CRT televisions as a kid, if you don't remember seeing it in theaters, and then as an adult watching it in HD on streaming, you might notice. That's also a thing that people don't think about. Stuff you would notice now in HD on a big TV that you might not have watching it as a kid on a small TV.
One of the prequels, where they had C3PO with a red leg. And that was shocking. It was like, oh, they've...
Red arm.
Oh, was it an arm or something? Yeah, it was...
It's in the sequels.
Like...
In the sequel, he has a red arm.
Shocking. He's got a different arm, and it's obviously not part... So... If we knew that he had a silver leg,
like he's literally in this moment directly misremembering the movie he's even talking about, and he's like, no, I never forget things though, even though he's not even remembering what movie he's talking about.
It wouldn't be so shocking having a different part on him, you know. So yeah, that was the one for me. I was like,
the red arm, by the way, is explained in a Star Wars The Force Awakens prequel comic book.
You know, I absolutely know, because I was such a Star Wars fan.
Apparently not that big.
But I even made a fancy dress costume, a C3PO fancy dress costume. So I poured over those pictures for hours and hours and hours. There was no way he had a silver leg in my universe.
Okay, apparently you didn't have a picture from Return of the Jedi or weren't paying enough attention.
So
Hydrate.
that was the one that got me. And then I found Snow White and all the others. And yeah, it was very cool, very interesting. But again, I had to park that because there were more pressing matters coming along, you know.
There were two different versions of the initial C-3PO toy, one with a silver leg and one without it. That's the source of a lot of the confusion. Gotcha.
Other research I was looking into. So it just had a gee whiz factor,
But as I started looking further into
Speaking of the whiz factor, Dave, will you tell us about your interest in drinking your own urine?
nature of this reality, now I can see that there's this Mandela effect has, not only is it real, but it's showing us something about the nature of this reality. You just played the X-Files with was it Mulder saying, yes, it's we're passing into different universes and things like that. No, I don't think we are. I think there is one universe, right? One reality.
I agree.
And what's happening is different probabilities are being brought into our reality. And those probabilities affect, the past, the future, and the present. So, but we can get into that.
So you think things are changing, like Back to the Future time travel style?
More detail if you want to.
Or BioShock Infinite, but if there weren't other universes, and you were just bringing probabilities in, which again is vague, but I know what he's trying to say, but it doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I am a one reality guy. Everybody that watches my channel a lot knows that about me when we talk about theories. And of course,
That just feels so masturbatory to even talk about. What the fuck does that mean? You're some random asshole on the internet and you're talking about multiple fucking dimensions or one dimension? The fuck are you talking about?
we're speculating about theories of the cause of the Mandela effect. But the Mandela effect, and I totally understand why you parked it on the shelf for a while, and a lot of people do. Unfortunately, a lot of people completely triggered by it and won't even go there at all. That's a little different than parking it on the shelf for a little bit. But then when you start to dig into it,
Are they triggered by it, or they just think you're wrong? Because there's a big difference between those two things.
what you tend to see is it's a lot more than just Snow White and Mr. Rogers and C-3PO. It's actually like the deepest thing ever, because we're talking about the underlying aspect of how reality functions. And if the Mandela effect is real, which I know the Mandela effect is real, that means that
What do you mean you know it's real? What do they think knowledge is? I don't mean to get into a whole fucking conversation about, like, how you know what you know.
we thought were possible with physical matter and the fabric of time are also completely out the window, because we're seeing things retroactively change. If things could change instantaneously, like if my Star Wars movies could change.
I'm sorry, it's the dissonance. It's the dissonance. Let's talk ontology. Let's not. How about notology? Let's talk notology. Anyway, I'm sorry. The dissonance between them trying to have what ostensibly would be a very high, like some sort of cosmological conversation about multiple universes, and the juxtaposition of, if my fucking Star Wars movies fucking change. I just feel like this is just so masturbatory, and I hate it. It's like pretentious, but in the dumbest way. Like there's no self-awareness. I say this as a very pretentious asshole. Like, Jesus Christ.
Which they did. I had 3 different hard copy versions, okay? Checked them when the C-3PO thing went down, or at least when I became aware of it.
They changed my fucking C-3PO! He was on my fucking shelf!
And there he was with the silver leg. So if physical matter in my house can instantaneously change,
It isn't! You're misremembering! You just didn't notice something! You didn't notice!
would be one thing. But it's not even instantaneous change. It's like a backwards through reality all the way forward change. That's some deep stuff. And then when you start to look more and more at the Mandela effect, you realize it's not just products and media. That'd be enough for me. But
those are the things I mostly notice, though, because those are the centerpiece of my fucking reality. My media and my consumer goods. We're doing feckin' great.
There's supernatural changes, for the lack of a better term, to all the Bibles in the world.
Oh, that's that's a task. Was it the Gideons?
Human anatomical changes.
Anatomical changes. Oh boy, that explains a lot for me. One morning I woke up and I was like, holy shit. Nope, I'm gonna stop that joke. You know, that joke can stop there. That's the end of the joke. Joke over.
Geographical changes to where the land masses of the earth are positioned.
Mm-hmm.
And even with your first memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison, well, he's not the only person that people remember being dead. I totally remember Louis Anderson, the comedian, being dead like over 20, 25 years ago. Um, so we're talking about people coming back from the dead, and but retroactively, and also people that live their daily lives, their last names are changing, like Jimmy Savile, Joel Osteen.
Jimmy Savile didn't change. His horrible crimes came to light.
Right. We could do a list of names, so deep because Dan Aykroyd, the name of his spellings changed. So many of these people. So this is a really, really deep topic, and it's interesting too because when you
It's a deep topic. They're changing the name of Dan Aykroyd. They're changing Dan Aykroyd's name spelling. They're out to get us. Truly, it's nothing but trouble.
bring up the deeper ones to people, a lot of them will just they don't want to talk about it at all, and then they want to keep going back to, well, who cares if the Monopoly Man has a monocle or not?
Yeah, so what I think we're seeing really are the ripples. Yeah, so something was changed, and we're seeing the ripples of that change. So, something major has changed, for whatever reason. And, say because of that change, one guy didn't show up for work, the next day. And so he didn't have his input on, the marketing meeting for, I don't know, Captain Crunch or whatever. And so the name, it didn't, came about because, he wasn't there. And so now there's that little change, because of the main change. I don't know, I can't prove it, but I think one of the
The sentence should end at, I can't prove it.
major things that created a big change was 9/11.
You just said you thought 9/11 was an inside job anyway, so what are you talking about? Lariah, thank you for 11 months.
Was this focus for everybody in the world, essentially, on this one event, right? Created a separate timeline going forward. Because before then, I think most of us had a view.
He thinks that human consciousness, collectively, paying attention to a single thing conceptually, can change the physical world. Oh no.
The future. We had this view of the future of being an amazing place with all this amazing
The misconception about observation changing measurement has really fucked the brains of some people. Like, don't get me wrong, I think they would have thought stuff like this anyway, but it's given them some sort of pseudo-scientific explanation because they don't understand what's actually happening. So, I think a lot of you have probably heard in, like, quantum physics, the idea that observing an event changes the results, which has given woo-woo conspiracy and, like, conspiritual people this idea that just simple human observation actively changes reality, when that's not what it means. It means that the devices that we use to measure things actively, like, change it. So, like, if you're using a certain kind of microscope to measure something, and that microscope measures things by bouncing particles against them, when it bounces those particles to read something, it's moving the particles by bouncing against them. It's not that observation or consciousness is doing it, it's that our methods of observation de facto fuck with the systems we're observing. It's not mystical. It's not that actually observing something or consciousness does something. It's the material things we use as tools affect the system. It's not magic.
technology and stuff. And I think we got skewed into a different reality.
So like as big as the 9/11 thing was, and as much as the media and everything was saturated with it, you'd think they hit us so hard with that it like shifted our consciousness basically completely.
Right. I hate this phrase about shifting consciousness and raising consciousness, because you ask somebody what it means, and most people don't really understand what that actually means.
It's almost like there isn't an actual specific definition and everyone's just talking about vibes.
I actually I was just thinking about that phrase yesterday. Um, let me go back a second, right?
Yeah.
We're not really playing bingo now.
1993, I heard a song that was amazing, and I couldn't, I don't know what it was about. It was called Re-Evolution by the Shaman. Okay. And it was this weird guy speaking words I had no idea what he was talking about. And it was just, this guy speaking over music, right? For some reason, I memorized every word of what he was saying.
How would you know you memorized every word if you don't know any of the words he's saying?
And to this day, this was what, 30 years on, I can still remember every word of that song.
How do you know if you actually remember it correctly if you never knew any of the words or what they meant? You probably remember gibberish that you vaguely think sounds like it, but it probably isn't.
But what I found was, when I was waking up, I was trying to figure something out, and I'm walking down the street in New York, and I'm trying to work out what I've just learned, and I heard the words of this song in my head, and it explained what it was I was trying to figure out.
What?
Amazing. And again, a week ago,
I would go as far as to say that's unbelievable.
I'm working on something else on an even higher level than I learned before. And again, this same track, the same words explained what I was thinking about. I was trying to work out. So the strange voice was Terrence McKenna. I don't know if you know who Terrence McKenna is.
Yeah, I've heard him.
So raising consciousness, and he has a different sort of view on it from the psychoactive drug point of view.
This is the song. I can't play that. Thanks for the link, though. If anyone wants to hear the song, I can't play it, but there it is.
He says when you're in having these psychoactive experiences, there is so much information and on such different levels, right, that you can only understand what you have cultural or experiential context for. There's stuff that's coming at you.
I guess we can take a look at the lyrics. If the truth can be told so as to be understood, it will be believed. Human history represents such a radical break with the natural systems of biological organization that preceded it that it must be the response to a kind of attractor or dwell point that lies ahead in the temporal dimension. Persistently, Western religions have integrated into their theologies the notion of a kind of end of the world, and I think that a lot of psychedelic Is this a spoken word song? How is this a song? Fucking what? This is just a lecture. I think a lot of psychedelic experimentation sort of confirms this intuition. It isn't going to happen according to any kind of scenarios of orthodox religion, but the basic intuition that the universe seeks closure in a kind of omega point of transcendence is confirmed. It's almost as though this object in hyperspace, glittering in hyperspace, throws off reflections of itself, which actually ricochet into the past, illuminating this mystic, inspiring that saint or visionary, and that out of these fragmentary glimpses of eternity, we can build a kind of map that not only the past of the universe and the evolutionary ingression into novelty, but a kind of map of the future. So this is a brain that has been fried by psychedelic drugs? That's not good. Don't take that seriously. That's just the drugs.
but you cannot grasp it because you don't.
MH Darkbeast says, "Greetings, Hannah. Coming home finally on Saturday. Man, this is like right out of the Negaverse. Reading Rainbow. Here's a fun early birthday cleanse for you to celebrate."
Report listed data.
I saw this. I watched this the other day.
Report listed data. Report listed data.
And all my crewmates say I'm pretty fly for an AI.
I do love data.
don't have the context for it.
Yeah, that channel, if anyone is interested, that channel has a decent number of TNG parody songs, by the way.
Yeah, and the context we have in this life is that we can have something, a metaphor for it. Okay, so we would say, oh, it was like this, or it seemed very much like that. Unless we have a metaphor for it, we can't understand it. We can't.
The fact that you have an ineffable experience that's difficult to articulate beyond the metaphorical doesn't make that thing magic. It just means that it's difficult to articulate.
We can't conceptualize it. But as you learn more about this world, then...
It's almost my birthday, by the way, chat. The 12th next month, I'm turning 30. Oh my god, and that's a Tuesday.
Your ability to absorb new concepts increases.
Yeah, of course.
So these people talk about raising consciousness and stuff. It's as simple as understanding something new. So when you learn,
I won't be trustworthy anymore, chat. They always say don't trust anyone over 30. I'm gonna be beyond the trust point.
About the
I'm gonna be a bullshit adult.
The flat earth, your consciousness raised, because now once you know about the flat earth, you can understand the motivations of NASA, of the system. You know, why are they telling us all this stuff? You know, your consciousness has risen because now you can understand more about stuff that you've seen for all your life. Does that make sense?
So he thinks that NASA and round Earth is existing to hide cosmic truths, seems to be the general vibe here. They're hiding the truth with a capital T from you. Okay. Interesting. Sorry, I'm adjusting the size of this real quick. There you go.
Yeah, of course it makes sense.
Yeah, so yes, this raising consciousness is something, you know, an open-minded person does all the time. Yeah, it's not some mystical thing or anything. It's simply being open to new experiences and absorbing those experiences so that,
and then starting to understand more what this place is as you
just
understand
open up
more
a
and
bit
more,
more.
and as you start to tap into abilities more and more that we've always had.
Exactly.
What kind of
But
abilities?
if you don't have the context for those abilities, then you can't grasp them. You know, they're invisible to you.
Yeah, that's why I think some of the Mandela effect, it didn't all like, and we'll get into what we speculate the sources might be of the Mandela effect, the updates and all that. But that's why I think, you know, in my opinion, we're not hit with all the changes at once. It's like this incremental process, and it's kind of like getting us to understand this realm more. And part of that process we're talking about.
Well, I think the Mandela effect as such has always been happening. It's always been happening, right? Yeah. But now our consciousness is raised to the point where we can see it now. You know, we understand more about the world. We're now all connected. So that moment where I looked and said, you know, I'm sure that Nelson Mandela died in prison. Now we connect with other people around the world.
Or you're just wrong. Like, it annoys me that the Mandela effect is named after that, because it's the stupidest thing to get wrong. He is famous for not dying in prison. What the fuck is wrong with you people? You so don't know things, and then you get mad at the universe and act like someone hit you when you're told you're wrong. No, I wasn't wrong. It's the universe that changed. Stop. It's okay to be wrong. This is the central point of so many of your fucking problems, is the inability to recognize fault in yourself.
World to go, yeah, you know what?
Woo.
I remember that too. So now it's real, you know, it's a real thing. But before we're all connected in this way, you know, it just that idea just died in your head that, oh, I must have just misremembered it. Yeah. So, you know, I think it's always been happening. We're just now
Narcissist.
just starting to become aware of it, you know, because our consciousness level has risen to the point where we can accept a new concept, like somehow time is changing.
Except an old concept you misremembered.
And the reason I think time is changing is that
Because you drink so much pee, you're drunk on the pee, you're piss drunk all the time, you're pissed.
time has never been this rigid, you know, progression of cause and effect.
It is. It's the most rigid. It's the time cock.
That
Don't
we've-
threaten the time cock.
Been sort of educated to believe.
Yeah, so again, reality's functioning probably as it's always functioned. Maybe things have accelerated some from an event like a 9/11 or whatever. But again, like we're just starting to understand more and more what's been happening right under our noses the entire time.
Right. And if
This
you-
is why, if you notice when the Mandela Effect gets discussed, it's clever the way that they gatekeep it. I want to get your take on this. So a lot of people that won't look at the topic seriously at all, the farthest they'll go is they'll read a couple of these articles, and I consider them all disinfo articles, and they're endless, they're daily. You know, I get Google
Every single article that tells me I'm wrong is disinformation.
alerts for them. I read them, not all of them, but I look through them and see if there's anything to pick apart. And what they'll always do is they'll present like 40 Mandela effects or something, right? And for the most part, they are legit changes, but they never get past the products and brands. If they don't come right out and call it false memory, they leave you in the state of thinking that companies are just changing things. But what's really, I think, should be a red flag to anybody that's never taken this topic seriously.
Tea with Goblin says even a stopped cock is rigid twice a day. No, wait.
And people know I talk about it all the time, is like you guys are very well aware that we have things like this, Dave. This is what we call residue, physical residual evidence of the way that things used to be. It's not just a memory game. I have here a 12-inch C-3PO. This came out in 1997. This is 2 years before the prequels even came out. It's clearly representing original trilogy, okay? And it's so detailed that the wires on the stomach are individually painted and colored.
Okay?
But of course, he has 2 gold legs.
Because it's probably C-3PO from either the original Star Wars or Return. Didn't get the silver leg until Return of the Jedi. That's the answer. Like, you could have looked this up. Even the pictures on the back weren't from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Why would this even exist if it's never been a thing?
Because C-3PO didn't have a silver leg in all of the fucking movies.
I
At
keep
least I don't think so.
showing that grocery stores and their POS systems, you can buy products that have allegedly never existed, and we're all just crazy. Haas avocados, multiple grocers, Walmart, and Kroger's think they're selling Haas avocados, but they've always been Haas now. The Food Lion next to me, and a few other several, like 4 other grocery stores I just showed this week, all think they're still selling a spice called turmeric, which is now
Turmeric?
turmeric. Nobody wants to talk about the physical residual evidence we have, and this is another reason, Dave, why I'm a one reality guy. I don't think it's
Did he have
multiple
it in A
times.
New Hope? I didn't remember that.
Lines, multiple universes, and to me, the multiple universes and all that's more to take us away from ourselves, like the multiverse that mainstream science pushes when they push their heliocentric bullshit. What do you think about that?
Sure. Absolutely. I personally think
I misremembered. Or the universe changed. One of those two things, whichever's more likely.
it's independent of what's happening out here. We all have our own personal recording of our universe.
No, you don't. Your brain doesn't record things, it recreates them. That's not how memory works. It doesn't work like a video recorder. It recreates them. It's like an impressionistic painting. It's not like a video recording. That's why eyewitness testimony is incredibly unreliable as evidence, because people don't remember things correctly all the time, constantly.
That we keep, you know, a personal, our personal take, our personal perspective on the universe. And that recording is independent of what happens out here. Yeah. So when out there changes, our recording.
He's been mispronouncing words all this time, and he thinks it's because he's in a different timeline. Nothing works that way.
Doesn't. And yeah, there are some people who
He just got upset because one time he told people he blended in just like a chameleon, and he's super embarrassed.
who maybe aren't really that interested in Star Wars, for instance. So what color C-3PO's leg is, they don't care. They've never.
I don't really care the color of C-3PO's leg, if I'm being honest. On a day-to-day basis, it doesn't come up a lot. This is the first time I've thought about the color of C-3PO's leg in probably my whole life.
Considered it.
But the beautiful thing is, this affects like every category of everything. So whether you're into movies or music or art or geography or something, there's Mandela effects for you. And again, I'm a one reality guy for another reason. These people are all affected. I prove it all the time. I mean, everybody's affected by a slew of changes.
Absolutely.
Not all the exact same ones as everybody, but there's a slew of them that you can hit anybody.
There'll always be one that will get somebody that will go, bloody no, I know that's not the truth. Yeah. So I did a video.
What do you mean you know something? There's no such thing as, like, knowing something, really. I don't mean to be a pretentious bitch about this, but, like, you can believe something very strongly. I'm a very big believer against belief in terms of absolute confidence. I don't think that's a real thing, and should be avoided at all costs. Belief is probabilistic, not binary, at least ideally.
Recently from one of my talks, and it was called How the Most High Created the Universe. And in it, I show my perspective on how a singular intelligence, singular consciousness that is all there is, right, would go about creating a universe. And he'd do it simply by exploring himself, exploring existence, right? So
that just makes it that just makes it sound like you think God created the universe while fondling themselves, which is fine. I don't care. It just seems weird from your perspective, I guess. I feel like you're trying to take this seriously.
I show basically how he goes up the different dimensions and does that essentially just by thinking of, okay, what is the most interesting concept for a singular being who is all there is?
Freakazoid.
Right. Well, that concept will be other, something else other than him.
Okay, if we're doing this like pretentious, big-brained hypothetical thing, I would argue that if there was a singularity that was a being of ultimate good, creating the other is an invention of evil and would therefore make God evil. If you lived in a perfect universe that existed only of yourself and you are ultimate good and you create the other that creates evil, then you are evil. Like, this is all, again, masturbatory and stupid and means nothing, but, like, if we're just gonna sit here and jerk each other off, like, we can fucking do that.
So he could symbolize himself as a point and then symbolize other as another point.
Why, though? But why do that? But why?
Right? But that point has necessarily got to be apart, away from, himself. So now we've got the idea of two-dimensional space. Or at least one-dimensional when you think about a line, between the two, right? But then you can think of, that this singular being could think of that other being up here or down here or any sort of anywhere it can be that distance away. Well, that's an idea of a circle, right?
3 points isn't a circle.
Right. So now he can imagine this other being, you know, all the way around him. But now he can think, well, oh, I wonder what it looks like from the other's perspective. Well, now you can draw a circle around that as, you know, where all the possible places, right, the one can be from the other.
It's like he read Flatland and he thinks he's a big brain boy now.
So now you've got two circles interacting, it's sort of intersecting, right? But essentially, if you keep doing this process of exploring, you end up with this idea of the flower of life, right? And in that flower of life is all two-dimensional geometry, right? So the whole, you know, all two-dimensional geometry is embedded in this picture, right? But also all three-dimensional geometry is in there. So you get this impression like a two-dimensional projection of a three-dimensional object, right? So you get a cube in there. Yeah, you've got a square, but you've also got a cube represented in there. So now you've got this idea of 3 dimensions, right? The point is, this is a thought-based universe.
No, it's not.
So now
You're a thought-based being in a material universe.
you've got this idea of 3 dimensions, right? A 3-dimensional playground, as it were. I extend it to the 4th dimension, right? So what's the 4th dimension? So
So you're gonna say time. So you're gonna fucking say time.
all of the dimensions are, okay, you start off with a line, that's 1 dimension, right? Well, you can actually, you know, go to another dimension, which is, you know, so length and width. And then you can add the 3rd dimension, height, right? So what would be the 4th dimension? Because there's no other direction you can
Futurity.
go to make a 4th dimension. Right, well, we can figure out what the 4th dimension is by remembering that at every level of this universe, it's self-similar. It's the same thing at every level.
Hypercube. Is he gonna talk about a hypercube? Is he doing it?
Okay, so if you think of a cube, a 3D cube.
Yep, he's
right?
doing it.
And you cut it in half and look at where you've cut. Yeah, so 90 degrees. Look at where you've cut. You get a square. Okay, that's a cross section of a cube, right? So you get the square and you cut it in half and look at its cross section. You get a line, right? So you look at a line, you cut it in half.
I think hypercube sounds cooler than tesseract.
Look at its cross section. You get a point.
Why tesseract? I prefer hypercube.
So a line is a whole stack of points all merged together into one thing. Okay. And a plane, a surface, is a whole bunch of lines all merged together into one thing. And a cube is a bunch of squares, right? Flat squares, all merged
Oh,
together.
see, I thought 4 was hyper and a tesseract, and it was the same thing.
A stack of them all merged together
I
into
know.
one thing. So the 4th dimension must be a whole bunch of these 3-dimensional objects merged together into one thing. So what would that look like? Well, I think it is, what 4th dimension is changeability, change,
What?
time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you don't get,
The 4th dimension being time is not something you came up with. That's something that goes back into the late 1800s at minimum in terms of literature. So A, don't act like you fucking did that, and B, no, space-time is like the same thing. So certainly you can measure something on a timeline, but it's not the 4th dimension in that way. They believe there are higher than 3 spatial dimensions. The 4th spatial dimension isn't time.
an instantaneous object, like a chair. Let's imagine a chair. A chair just doesn't pop into being like that, right? So we interact with a 3-dimensional slice of that chair. So that chair at a very particular point in time. But that chair started off as a flash of light, which got absorbed by a leaf, which helped grow a tree, and that tree was cut down and turned into lumber. And then somebody had an idea of making a chair and turn that lumber into a chair. But that's not the whole story, because eventually that chair will break or whatever, and it'll end up in landfill where it breaks down into liquid.
You're still describing things happening in 3 dimensions, just over a period of time.
Right, and that liquid breaks down into a gas, and that gas might ignite and
Like,
turn
nothing you're describing right now is indicative of higher dimensions. It's just describing the life cycle of an object.
into light again.
Wait, you think the chair turns into light?
So that whole
No.
process is the chair, right? So it's a stack of events all merge into one object, which is something we can't imagine, which is the 4th dimension, and we only interact with slices of that chair. Does that make sense? It's really sort of
Well, it does make sense, but we don't only interact with that. Now we're seeing that we've been interacting with the 4th dimension, and we're recognizing it now with things
Yes.
popping in.
I want to repeat that this is a conversation that is explained much more succinctly in H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, which was written in, like, 1890. So this is not, like, a hard-hitting conversation about the nature of reality. This is cliche, just being talked about by dude bros on the internet.
Into reality, like you said, this chick didn't just pop into reality, but I would argue that things do pop into reality now. In fact, I saw a tree pop into reality in front of my friend Steffi's house that was never there.
He thinks a tree popped into reality.
Totally was not there. Then all of a sudden, it's part of reality, interwoven into the past, and then
Different pictures of C-3PO. There's the silver leg. In the desert, it's hard to see because it's reflecting all the sand, which is kind of golden. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense why figure creators might not notice that either when they're creating the toys and stuff.
after me talking about it, this tree even disappeared from reality again.
But
No, it's never been there.
that's slightly different, right? Because it's not about it popping into reality. Yeah, when you saw it, right? Because you didn't just look at it and then all of a sudden it was there.
You
Right?
said you're not good at math. Maybe you're not quick with arithmetic or whatever, but you're good at math. How would I be good at math? I'm bad at math. What?
You sort of went away and came back.
Jitara says, Hannah, you don't understand. They're playing on lower settings, so their draw distance isn't that good.
And what's that tree doing there? Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a change made in the past, so that tree was there, and then it changed again. But
Or you just didn't notice the tree, or someone planted a fully grown tree. One of those two things.
this pen didn't just pop into reality when I wanted it. Yeah. There was a history to this pen, right? And the history goes into the future with this pen.
I like that what he's describing with great enthusiasm as if he's discovered something new is effectively object permanence. Did you know that this object in front of me exists when I'm not observing it? Like, yes, I am not solipsistic, so I am aware of that, yes.
But we don't have a metaphor right now for creating pens out of thin air. If we did, then that would become
You just used you just described it as creating a pen out of thin air. I would argue that that's a metaphor. That's literally a metaphor. You're articulating it poetically.
possible in this reality. Right? It's all about metaphors because we're here for a reason. We're here for a reason. Right? If you go back into the Old Testament, Adam was created as in the image of the Most High. Right? All the animals in this world are here to do a job. Their job is to keep this world running. Okay, so I use the example of lions and antelope. Right? Lions don't eat antelope just because they like antelope meat.
That's pretty much the reason.
Their job is to keep the antelope population, at optimum, efficiency.
I mean, you're post hoc putting that explanation on it. You're putting a a reason that does not exist. It might do that as a result, but that's not an intent of the lion, the antelope, or any other being. It is just a result that you can observe and describe. But that's not why it's happening. The lion's just hungry and instinctually goes to eat, to hunt. Fenekigami says, have some bits to celebrate my finishing my taxes. Thank God that bit of agony is over for another year. Well, that's nice, Fenekigami. Glad to hear it.
So that the antelope can keep the savannah nice and clean, and whatever. And
nice and clean for whom? What are you talking about? Outside of themselves, who do you think they're doing this for?
If there were too many antelope, they'd start destroying the savannah. So the lion population grows to take down the antelope population, so the earth is always perfect. And
it's except species go extinct all the time? What?
All the animals, all the way up and down the animal kingdom, are all doing a job to keep this earth ticking over. We're the only ones who don't have
the
a job
teleological
here.
Necessity hurts. No kidding.
Our job is to experience this place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Experience everything there is to experience. And for to that end, I believe we have the power to shape our experience any way we want it to be. And that is, I think, is the big secret that they're trying to hide. This is why they've created this whole fantasy world around us, right?
Yeah.
To stop us remembering that we can change this world in a heartbeat if we wanted to. But we've been poisoned, not only physically but mentally as well, so that we don't understand that we can do this.
Well, thank you, Cloud Wizard. I'm not able to practically apply it to anything, but I appreciate that.
Right? So as I said, he created a fourth dimension as well. Now I had this experience. I call them cannabis journeys.
So you're high. Cloud Wizard with 100 bits, thank you.
So
oh, good. Let's hear it. Yeah, let's hear it.
Drugs don't usually affect me, right?
I feel like that's not true. I feel like that's 110,000% not true.
Usually, but cannabis does. And I've had 7 or 8 cannabis journeys now where I take this
7 or 8, huh? Wild guy here.
Stuff. And it will teach.
I'm sorry, I'm cracking up that he's talking about weed like it's LSD or DMT or something. Cannabis journey. Did you smoke a joint and eat some Doritos? What fucking journey were you going on, sir? Like, it's weed. What are you doing? I ate 2 bags of Cool Ranch Doritos and watched a whole season of Rick and Morty. The horror.
Teach me things, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things it taught me, I had a little bit too much cannabis oil once. Okay, just a bit too much. And what happened was I felt myself being pushed through reality into a different world.
Fuck off. Where is the weed these people are getting that their tolerance is this low? What are they doing? G-Taurus says it's a side quest. He probably has to keep restarting the quest due to the aforementioned draw distance issues.
And that world was the wireframe version of this world. Okay, so like
what,
when
the wire flame? Is that what you said?
Wireframe.
I'm sorry, the last time that marijuana affected me the way he is describing, I think I was like 22 and had done it for the first time. I don't know, but even then I knew what it was. I was on drugs.
Wireframe. So
wireframe.
Yeah, when you create a 3D, 3D object with a, 3ds Max or
Annie Kai says, I've had experiences like that with really potent stuff. I ate a 300 milligram cookie once. Fair enough. Maybe I've just never taken, like, an insane amount. Like, maybe I've never taken, like, that much. I think the most I've ever done in one thing is, like, 100 milligrams? So maybe it's just, like, an insane amount that I have no interest in taking. Fedekagami says, I've also started an argument with MAGA people online. Stupid of me, I know, and I think I found my favorite response. Quote, I could give you answers to your dumb statements, but I won't waste my time because your mind is made up. End quote. Like, if you really felt it was a waste of time, you wouldn't say anything, right? Sounds like they feel I'm wrong, but can't actually explain it. Yeah.
something. You know, you create a 3D object, you create the wireframe version, and then you render it with a solid surface. Yeah.
Maybe in a game, but that's not how the real world works. Are you gonna try and say that the thing you saw while you were high on drugs was real?
But
you were on drugs. Harold Elberman IV says, speaking of crimes against teleology, the aristocratic class in the 18th century France had a similar opinion of themselves. The peasants exist to work like animals, and we exist to experience it and indulge ourselves. I can't help but notice that they went a bit extinct by way of national razor not long after they had this revelation, so maybe that's not a good survival strategy. You know, I would tend to agree with you.
underneath that is, you know,
more ideological explanations. Ban teleological discussions.
Sort of mathematical wireframed image of that three-dimensional object. So, you know, if I was looking at a table in front of me, I was breaking through into another world. I could see the table, but it was just a wireframe version of that table. And
I get what you mean.
So I was seeing essentially this place, which was a where everything was prototyped.
It's like the reality.
Fuck Kant. More like can't come up with any good ideas in philosophy, am I right?
That we've been creating the whole time, but you saw like the bare bones version of it before we made it more complete.
Yes. So again, this is my level of consciousness at the time, interpreting what I was seeing. Now, at the time, I didn't get it. I didn't get it because my level of consciousness wasn't up there to conceptualize what I was seeing. All I saw was just like what I called at the time a cartoon version of the world. Yeah. But as my consciousness rose, I saw it as, okay, it was the prototype world there. Okay. So the idea that's
he's
now
literally
with
just
me
describing a
is
drug trip. He just was on
whatever
drugs.
is created in that fourth dimension will appear here at some point. So if you created something new, like I don't know, an apple that was half red and half green, okay, if you defined it well enough in the fourth dimension, it will appear at some point. It will come into pass. Yeah.
Do you think that likely you're going to learn and others the ability when you can
cannabinoid compounds stack almost like carbon? It's dangerous how powerful new weed actually is. All I'm hearing is I can get a weed diamond? Is that what I'm understanding right now?
Tap into that and actually create something in that manner? And do you think not only is it possible, do you think we need large masses of people focusing on it, like a group type thing?
We're already doing it. Yeah. Right. So we have two hemispheres in our brain. Okay.
Oh no, he's doing the thing. He's gonna do the left brain, right brain thing.
Right and the left.
More like crack. I'll try the weed crack.
Right.
I probably shouldn't, but okay. Now,
the left-hand side is what keeps us grounded in this world, right?
No, it's not. That's not a thing.
It's what our senses are connected out this world. The left-hand side of our brain makes sense. It takes in all this information, looks for dangers, it looks for avenues for pleasure. It manages how we live in this 3D concrete world, right?
That's why some people that, although they're very intelligent, they can get through many deceptions and psyops and things. If they're too left-brained only, they can't see the Mandela effect. No matter
They can't.
what.
They
Or maybe you're just wrong, or they just disagree with you.
It
can't
seems.
see because, again, on the left-hand side, it's about analysis, logic.
Annie McKean with 18 months is happy anniversary. Can I get a sibling for Arnold Foot? Yes. Helga Hand. Helga Hand is the name of this sub baby.
Yeah, science, that sort of thing, right? So if you're stuck in the left brain, you can't see anything that defies logic and science and all that, right? No, it's that
I would see anything that is evidenced.
that's too no, that's out of it. That's supernatural. Let's not look there. Yeah.
That'd be great. If you can evidence it, I'm all there with you. But at this point, you're literally just saying there's definitionally no evidence for the thing you believe, and I'm okay being outside of that. That's fine.
The right-hand side of
Yep.
our brain isn't rooted in the third dimension. It's rooted in the fourth dimension.
Just saying stuff. Just saying stuff. That's not true.
Right? And it's connected to, the only way I can describe it is spiritual senses. So what are spiritual senses? Well, they're the senses that their spiritual eyes are the eyes you see with when you imagine your mother right now, right?
That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. Like, what?
Imagine your mother. You can see her face, can't you?
I don't picture things in my head, so no.
Kind of, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, they're your spiritual eyes. You're not seeing her with the physical ones. You're looking at a computer right now.
You mean the fact that people can see things in their heads? Why their mother? The same process you use to imagine an apple in your head is the same as your mom. Like, why?
Right? Your spiritual ears are the ears you hear with when you imagine a duck quacking. You can hear
No, I've talked about this before. I can't picture things in my head.
that duck.
I think in words. It's all words. So if you were like, think of a apple, that's usually the example. I can't picture an apple very well. No.
Quacking in your head, but you're not hearing anything. Yeah. But you have the experience of hearing. They're your spiritual ears, right? And your spiritual eyes, right? Your spiritual senses. They're the things you sense the world when you are in a dream. Yeah. So you're not anywhere physical, but you are experiencing something, and you can feel things, you can hear things, you can see things, but they're not physical things. So you have, there are two halves of you. One half is rooted in the third dimension. The other half is rooted in the fourth. So half your life, and it would be half if we didn't have all this technology, half your life is in the third dimension. When you go to sleep, you're now in the fourth dimension, accessing, right? And again, remember the fourth dimension is essentially three dimensions all merged together. So in time. So the whole of this reality is an object in the fourth dimension that encompasses the whole of space and time all merged into one object.
Where do people get the, like, false confidence to just make shit up like this? Like, he's so confident in this nonsense he's saying that means nothing, that he's not experimented, he's not demonstrated anything, he's just saying it, and he's, like, confident. He said it like it's objectively true. It's wild.
You could do so. You want him to do you so much you could do anything.
And then another one.
Dude, my hands are huge. They can touch anything but themselves. Oh, wait.
Thanks, Lur.
Which means that in the fourth dimension, you have access to everything from the beginning of time to the end of time, right? all information, all time, space, and events.
All at once. Everything's
once.
happening at once.
What was that? Was
There is
that
no
film?
path.
Everything everywhere all at once? I feel like I've seen that somewhere before.
Everything, everywhere, all at once. Yeah, and that's in your fourth dimension. So that explains things like telepathy, right? So imagine this, okay? I don't know if you can see. I drew something earlier on. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that? So
Mr. Fancy Pants.
Mr.
Over here
Fancy
with the
Pants, yeah.
production.
So if up here is me, right, and down here is you, right? So there's me as a point, and there's you as a point, yeah. If that line represents a distance of 3 feet, I can communicate with you because we have the metaphor of language that I can make small mouth noises, right? You can hear them with your ears. You can translate the words I'm saying, and now the meaning is passed to you, right?
Chitara says, if my fourth dimensional self had access to all of that, why didn't the homie do me a solid and help me out in school or help me win the lottery, right? Just saying. This A24, Everything Everywhere All at Once is great, by the way. It comes with a bunch of props. So, like, some of the receipts and stuff from the movie, from the IRS stuff is in here. This is pretty much for anyone who's into Blu-rays like me, because A24 puts out, like, ridiculous sets. This is a flip book of different Evelyns from the scene where you're seeing a bunch of different Evelyns, so it's like a flip book of all the different ones. Again, here's the, divorce contract from the movie, with the instructions on the back. Warrant to seize property from the movie, from the end. Some more court paperwork. Handwritten note from some of the people behind the movie. There's a poster. Some other receipts. Just nice, fun presentation with a bunch of little props and stuff. Decent set.
Right. Now, if we're
Where's the donut? The disc is the donut.
miles apart, I can't use that metaphor anymore, right? Because sound waves in this 3D universe don't travel that far. But we have another metaphor. We've got the metaphor of technology that we're using right now. That I can speak here. What the electrical signals get transferred over undersea cables.
Of course.
And go into your machine, and the sounds coming out of your machine, you can hear what I'm saying, and you get the same meaning, right? If we didn't have that metaphor, it's now impossible for me to talk to you over 1,000 miles.
That's not a metaphor. That's a literal thing. Technology isn't a metaphor. It's technology. What do you mean if we didn't have that metaphor? It's not a metaphor. It's a material reality that we have that technology. What the fuck? Here's the disc, by the way, that has the donut thing on it. And a front cover with some art.
Right. On the other side of this paper is the fourth dimension. Okay. All right. The thing is, though, in the fourth dimension, as I said before, you and me are connected. We're all in the same place, right? And all in this one object. Okay. So, and this is out on the 3-dimensional world now.
No way. Is he gonna literally do the thing from Inception? Or not Inception, sorry. Interstellar? The trope of every fucking thing that wants to explain a wormhole? This is so fucking cliche. This is a trope that makes me roll my eyes when it's in a movie, much less in real life. Is he really gonna do it?
3-dimensional world, there's a way that I can push
He
through
did it. He's doing the thing. God damn it.
it using
Like,
the
does he think he invented that?
fourth dimension. Yeah.
Nah, I didn't get that memento set. It was nice, but it's expensive. I'm not spending a bunch of money right now. So, not really getting new Blu-rays other than stuff that you guys send me until some future date. Things are tight, so.
So just bypass that distance and go straight to you via the fourth dimension.
Does he think he invented that? Like, does he not know that he absorbed that from 50,000 different pieces of media? On some level, does he think he came up with that?
Does that
Yeah.
make sense now? Okay.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
if we had that metaphor that, there's a way I can push through the fourth dimension, right, directly to you instantly without any time delay or whatever, right, then we have what we call telepathy. And telepathy is real, right?
Evidence?
The way we access the fourth dimension, again, is for our right brain using what we call imagination.
Oh, he
Right?
literally thinks the
So-
imagination is real.
The metaphor in the third dimension is we use technology, a phone, right? I put in a unique
That's not a metaphor.
number that represents you, right? You pick it up and now we're connected, okay? In the fourth dimension, I can just imagine you. I could just picture you and your face and, what I feel about you when I met you, let's say, right? And now I'm connected to you.
No, you're not. You're thinking about that person, but you're not actually connected to them in some physical way through another dimension. Oh no.
And now with that connection, I can send pictures, intentions, feelings over to you.
No, you can't.
Right?
Do a double blind. Do some sort of study and demonstrate that, or shut up.
And you'll get them. Whether you recognize them as such is another matter. But,
Well, if they don't recognize them, oh boy, doesn't seem like there's a lot of evidence that it's even happening, huh?
that's how it works. We have this connection over.
Demonstrate the connection then with a falsifiable test.
The fourth dimension. And I saw this in the film The Matrix. Yeah. So in The Matrix, right, the metaphor is when
he keeps using metaphor wrong.
Neo and Trinity are connected. They're lying on their couches, yeah, with a spike in the back of their head, but they're in this world talking to each other, right? Well, they're using technology to do that,
They're both in the Matrix. They're both in the program together.
In the Matrix. They can easily bypass that by speaking to each other in the real world.
Except they can't because they're plugged into the Matrix.
Doesn't matter if in the Matrix they're like 1,000 miles apart. There should be a metaphor, which in the film there isn't.
You said there was, but now there isn't. He's making up a metaphor. Oh. Profane Priestess says, so this guy thinks he can cast the sending and telepathic bond spells. This guy's a 9th level spellcaster. Doubtful. Also check your DMs. Will do.
Where they could speak to each other, while they got the spike in their head in that room, right? In fact, in the film, there is that metaphor because, the metaphor there is that Trinity and Neo are so in love that when Trinity speaks to him while he's in there, he hears it, right? Because
does he think a metaphor is just a thing that happens in a story?
She says Neo, and he gets up, and he runs, right? Because he heard her, right? Can you see? It's like we can all access this other dimension, right? We've been trained not to, because most of this world is about left brain staying in the left
Demonstrate it.
brain. right? But with our imagination, we can actually jump into the third dimension and the fourth dimension. But here's the thing. Time is in the fourth dimension as well. The whole of time and space. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But we have access to time and events, right? And because they're all there together, right, we can make changes, tiny changes. Right. So think of it as the whole of time and space as being a kaleidoscope. Have you used the kaleidoscope ever?
He only knows how to reason via metaphor, and he's not even good at metaphors.
Right.
This is so bad.
I know
the kaleidoscope is like one little segment, right, of little colored beads and bits of gel and whatever, right? And it forms a pattern. And then there's an arrangement of mirrors that makes this, infinite world of pattern. Yeah. But it's based on this one small pattern. So all the reflections, this infinite reflected world is 3D.
But it's, again, he's reasoning by metaphor. He's taking a small slice of a metaphor and then applying the entirety of the reality of the kaleidoscope and acting as though it applies to reality because he could, in one small section, compare it metaphorically, so the entire nature of the kaleidoscope therefore must apply to reality? That's such nonsense!
Okay. You can't make changes to the pattern. You can't make changes to any of the pattern because it's just reflections. If somehow you can get into the fourth dimension, into the pattern, if you make a tiny change there, then the whole of reality changes.
Yeah.
So as I said, in 4 dimensions, you have access to whole four, space and time. Sorry, you were going to say.
No, so I was gonna say, so what do you think is happening in the fourth dimension? What do you think is tinkering with reality? Do you think it's exclusively us? Do you think there's any supernatural deity behind it, God? I mean, I've come out on this. I think the creator of this realm is making the changes, in my opinion. And also another thing I wanted to ask you is you talked about the music.
Apparently God is big on changing the names of the Berenstain Bears.
And you getting direct
and whether or not the Monopoly Man has a monocle, and if there's a dash in between Kit and Kat on Kit Kat wrappers.
Messages through the music. This is something we talk about on this channel a lot. A guy, Nathan Sanders, who I have on quite often, talks about that very often, how it seems that the music is direct messages. So where do you think that's coming from?
Right. Okay. So with your first thought, I think we are making the changes ourselves. As I said, this is something that we are supposed to naturally be able to do. Right? We would naturally be doing it if we weren't so ruined by it.
Pretty common conspiratorial trope is that there's some natural idealized state for humans and we've been pulled away from it by evil forces. If only we could stop the evil, we would return to some quote-unquote natural state of being, more in tune with nature and reality and all this other bullshit.
By this system, we would be doing this all the time, right? I also think that what the system has done is replicated that ability. And I'll explain why in a little while. But
Temba,
but I can give you an example of us actually changing reality and time as well.
And definitely, and I definitely want you to get deep into why, how, and why you think they're mimicking the ability as well. Definitely, right. Good stuff.
So okay, most people have got the experience of manifesting a car parking space. Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
What?
Right. So, and most people who've done it know that it works.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You think that parking spaces magically appear if you want one?
Okay. So imagine this scenario, right? So you and me, go to end up going to Walmart, right? Separately, we go to Walmart, yeah, and you get there at 9 o'clock, right? And
Okay.
and right, you leave at 9:30, okay? And at 9:30, I arrive at Walmart. Yeah, I arrive at Walmart. I look for my favorite space, and your car's in it.
You have a
right?
favorite space at Walmart?
And so I have to find another car parking space. Right.
Okay.
So there's that timeline that's already set. Okay. Now imagine now that I decide before I set out for Walmart that I want that car parking space. I want
There's no way he actually fucking believes this,
that
right?
particular car park.
I know he does. I'm saying that in fruitless, like, futility. It hurts me that there are so many people who think that the world works like this.
In space, right?
Yeah.
So what I think happens is because I make that request, I want that thing to happen.
Reality gets overwritten and
No, it doesn't, you solipsistic shit. This makes me mad. It shouldn't. It's unhealthy that it makes me mad, but it does. I want to shake these people and be like, are you out of your goddamn mind? Like, no, this is not how reality works. Live in the real world, please. I'm begging you. Stop. Oh.
and then like there's some other car in my way when I go to park,
No.
then they pull out after I find a
No,
spot and you
no,
pull
no,
in.
no, 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 no.
Zwart Dude with a 4-month membership on YouTube says, wow, this is late for you. I'm just getting home from work. Well, I hope work went well. Glad you're home now. And thank you for the membership.
No, it gets a
Yes, this is Flat Earth Dave, who drinks urine.
little something a little more weird than that happens. That because of my request, because I want this thing to happen, right? And it's you that's in the car parking space. Let's imagine in that morning.
Shit, Nemesaur, thank you for gifting 20 tier 1 subs. Holy fuck, thank you.
If I hadn't asked for the car parking space,
Getting us so close to like our monthly sub goal too. Thank you, Nemesaur.
We're going to make a decision. Do I want a banana for breakfast or do I want cereal for breakfast?
Both.
Right. And you decide that you want cereal. Okay. So that means you leave your house at a certain time, and that's why you end up in my car parking space before while I want it.
Mhm.
But because I've asked for that car parking space, what if the moment I ask that car parking space, you make a decision, earlier in the day, that decision gets changed, right?
That doesn't make any sense, and that's not how material reality works as observed. You would have to actually test this, otherwise you're just ranting like a crazy person. Like, if you go out into the world and say this, do not be surprised if your whole life falls apart. Like, how can you hear this and think that this person is not a danger to themselves or others? Horrifying. Jitara says, wait, if all humans are supposed to be able to do this, couldn't someone else just go, I want that parking space after he'd parked, and his car no-clips through the parking lot asphalt? It would be incredibly annoying to live in a world where people can just imagine something that would be inconvenient or damaging to another person. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's basically just a way for him to think he has a lot more control over the world than he does.
So that you decide to have a banana instead. So you leave the house because you finish the banana a lot quicker. You leave the house maybe half an hour.
Like, this is scary to me. This scares me to see people who think the world works like this, that they have magic powers, that they can influence other people's decisions in the world based on. Like, how could they ever make decisions clearly? Like, if you think the world works like this, you literally believe in magic.
Earlier, you get to the Walmart half an hour earlier. Right, which means you leave half an hour earlier, which means as I arrive, you pull out. So the only change that's been made is a decision that you made. that has no other consequences in your life.
That's not how things work. Everything has a butterfly effect. If you could actually do that, it would change everything
But
on a long enough time scale.
that decision gets changed, right? Well, it didn't get changed. It was always that way, right? Because this is a
Except it did change in this metaphor. In this metaphor that you are writing, in this story you are writing, it did change. You said it did. It can't both have changed and never changed.
a thought-based universe. All the variables are being held in a mind. And that mind, which, can make a change in the past, which isn't the past really. It's just the pattern. I'm not sure if
So what do you think when it's not a personal one? When it's not a personal one, like a parking spot, and let's say we're talking about a reality change, like a Mandela effect, like a C3PO, right?
Right, well-
so how do you think that we
Well,
change that to a specific color or something like that?
Someone
Well,
had a
that-
silver C3PO leg fetish and just wanted it really, really badly.
that little change may not affect you, but it might affect somebody you meet during that time who
Overthought with 100 bits says, only problem is that if he knows that his car will be in a parking spot, then he won't know the momentum, aka it won't be parked. Okay, enough physics jokes.
then, because he's delayed talking to you, he doesn't he decided not to do something, and then something gets changed, right?
Yeah.
That's just one.
He doesn't seem as harmful as other conspiracy theorists. He's tried to arrest vaccine administer, he's anti-vax, and he has gone and tried to do a citizen's arrest of nurses giving people COVID vaccines before. This guy is a whack job that actually has gone out into the world and done things that are not good. Just for the record.
Example, but I could make a request for an experience in this world which might reach back into into your childhood, for instance. And so the ripples that are made by that change, we might
the whole manifesting thoughts into reality part. No, magical thinking is very scary and dangerous and is not innocent.
Correct.
If you don't think the world works the way that it works, you're dangerous inherently in that you are incapable of measuring situations realistically and dangers for other people as well as yourself to things happening.
The reason I think that we're seeing all these massive, well, I call them massive, C3PO's leg changing is a massive one. I think the reason we're seeing this is because only Adam and his children and his offspring have this ability. But there are more than just humans here, right? There are people we call the Nephilim, who I believe don't have this ability, but they're very clever, and they've figured out that they can use us to make the changes that they want. And they do that by creating these rituals that focus our mind in a particular way so that we create what they want to have happen, right? So I believe they've created technology that mimics the human ability to delve back into what we call the past and make changes.
A time machine. You think they invented a time machine?
I don't know if you came across the Project Camelot interview, somebody called Bill Wood.
I don't think I've heard that interview. What's the...
Moronics, I think you're thinking about The Secret. There was a book called The Secret that was promoted by Oprah Winfrey and other people like Deepak Chopra, spread a lot of the woo-woo manifesting wealth bullshit.
Premise of the interview.
He's basically saying that human beings work like 40k orcs. Yeah.
Talking about Montauk and Project Looking Glass. So one of these several projects.
Project Looking Glass is a QAnon thing where they think that Trump and Q and the white hats have access to basically a mirror that lets you see into the future. It's called Looking Glass. It's not true, of course, but it's what he's referencing. Mr. Blast, thanks for gifting a sub.
The American government had about delving into the past and making changes. And Project Looking Glass was one of them, where they could not only see the past, but they can influence it, make a change.
Sorry, apparently he thinks they can see the past and change it too. That's different than the lore I've heard from other people.
And then see what effect that change had on the present. Okay. Again, before I started looking at this, I had no idea that this was a thing, but it's apparently a thing. And one of the things that this Bill Wood mentioned was that there was the 2012 problem. That yes, they could go in and make changes to the past, but past a certain date, December 21st, 2012, it didn't matter what changes they made, right? They could
trying to loop in the 2012 end of the world conspiracies into this.
They couldn't affect the way the timeline was going to go on forwards from that point. So
that would kind of tie into your idea that the timeline kind of split off before that, right?
Yeah, well,
so they couldn't.
Yes, I think that's what they can make changes up to that point that will change the world the way they want it to, right? But anything past that point, they can't change the inevitable, right? Which and I think what happened 2012 was the beginning of the apocalypse, the great revealing of truth. Right, so that they couldn't change people waking up.
I'm not a fan of the millennialist conspiracy theories. It's always vague, and it's always just like, you'll see, everyone will have a revelation, and everyone will agree with me. It's the most boring conspiracy motivation, because it's basically just a big tantrum where you just want everyone to realize you were right the whole time. It's just sad. It's a boring motivation, to be honest. It's a very human motivation, but not that interesting. I have to pee, so I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Chair will talk to you about, what's Chair gonna talk to you about? Chair will talk to you about Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, based on Douglas Adams's book. Alright, be right back. Alright. Well, now you know how it's all connected. We can move on. Woo!
Up. Right? They can't stop this great awakening of humanity.
They can just sprinkle more bullshit on top of bullshit and try and keep people locked into their
try and keep people asleep. Yeah, so I believe they've created technology, and I think my view, it's the quantum computer. They've made this technology which allows them to reach into the past.
That's not what a quantum computer does.
Change a probability, right? So
no one can change a probability to our knowledge. That's not how anything works.
Again, if you think of this universe as a huge equation held in an infinite mind, okay?
But why would you think about it that way? Because we have no evidence that that's what's happening. So that's a bad way to think about it, actually.
So a huge pattern, right? That
Everything's connected. Dirk gently. Again, see? We get it.
encompasses the whole of time and space.
I did that intentionally. That wasn't an accident. For sure, Zeus.
And it's all based on probabilities, right? So in the 3D world, the universe is deterministic, right?
That's certainly a claim. Pack it in, everyone! Millennia of discussions about determinism versus free will. Dave's got an answer for us. Deterministic. We did it. We did it, chat.
It's essentially, for instance, your personality can be reduced to numbers, right?
Then do it. Reduce my personality to numbers.
So when it's reduced to numbers,
I've used special stats before. I know.
your responses to things can be determined, right? So in the 3D world, time is already set. It's already been, it's already set. It'll only go one way because in the 3D world, your responses, all of our responses are calculable, right? But when we make changes in the fourth dimension, we change the whole of reality.
So
Right.
you talked about us making the changes in the fourth dimensioning and then mimicking it with their technology, but they're basically what you think is they're doing the same thing, right?
Yes.
I mean, they are doing it. So
They're-
if they are doing it and it is quantum computers, how is that? What do you speculate is the mechanism why
They're
how
so
a quantum
quantum.
computer can even tap into the fourth dimension to manipulate something like that? How are they being able to mimic exactly what we do with these computers?
Okay, well, again, if you understand that there is a fourth dimension, well,
Mhm.
you can tap in. If we can tap into it, well, they can mimic it with technology. I don't know the process they're going by to tap into it in that way, but that's what I think is actually happening. Right, they're tapping into. Okay, to get to this version of reality, right? The events leading up to it, there had to be an infinite number of probable things happen to get to this particular reality, right?
Mhm.
Right. If we reach back and look at one probable event that actually crystallized into reality and then change that probability. So instead of that event happening, well,
He is taking so many words to just be like, hey, have you guys seen the butterfly effect? Or read The Sound of Thunder? That. Are you familiar with the trope of the butterfly effect? That. Why say much word when few word do trick? Pretentious asshole.
this event happened instead, right?
Mhm.
Then a new set of events end up.
Have you guys seen Back to the Future Part 2? Remember when it did this thing and the line went down into the parallel line? That's what I'm talking about. Look, I didn't waste anyone's time.
Streaming out from that particular moment in time. Okay. And that's what they're doing. They're reaching, and they say
Like, he's acting as though basic tropes of, like, sci-fi are mystical truisms that he has uncovered, as opposed to things he has picked up from media. Bizarre. Want to see him watch Primer.
when they talk
His brain to melt.
about the quantum computer, that they reach in and they say
Primer's a great movie in theory and a terrible movie to watch, and then be like, no, it's really good though, because like it all makes sense. And then it's like, yeah, it wasn't a good movie.
about power.
Primer is the most consistent time travel movie of all time, and it's great at that, and it's boring to watch. Good movie. Wouldn't recommend it unless you're a big dork.
Universes. They reach into a parallel universe where the answer thereafter is already known.
Umbrella Entertainment has a new Blu-ray of Primer coming out in March, I believe, by the way, if you're interested. It is a good movie.
And they pull that into this reality. And the guy Geordie.
If you're not a big dork or aren't familiar, I am big on time travel media. This whole top shelf are my time travel movies. So that's good.
Rose, who talks about it, he says that they're making an effect in our world, right? He doesn't say we get the answers to the calculation, we make an effect in our world. And I think the effect is that they make
It's like your Tolkien-loving friend who said he'd never recommend anyone read the Silmarillion. Yeah.
change that probability so that a different probability occurs, right? So now the timeline progresses from that point based on a different probability. So a different set of events ensue after that. So as well as us making changes, right, to our reality, which usually mean, you know, very, very small, insignificant changes. I think they're going in with, you know, with a sawn-off shotgun and making, you know, these changes. And so we're starting to see, you know, large changes, you know, like things like continents being different.
I'm sorry, you remember continents being different? Which ones?
You know.
So how do you think that is? So if
I have not seen Totally Killer yet, nor have I seen It's a Wonderful Knife. They're both on my list.
is that them making that change, or is that us? And if it's them, like, what type of, like, we could see how they could change a C-3PO or something, maybe if they can access the fourth dimension in the fabric of time. But how would land masses be moved positions?
Well, okay, so one of the things I've seen is that New Zealand used to be kind of northeast, so northeast of Australia, but
Even as a dumb American, no.
now it's southeast. Okay,
It's crazy looking. Yeah.
right, but here's the thing. I'm not sure if that's a Mandela effect.
Maybe you're just bad at geography, sir.
That's a artifact of my view of what the flat Earth is. Have you come across Iwar Anon and his you know, lost history of flat Earth?
But the thing is, all the old globes and maps that you could find anywhere are gonna show New Zealand. In the
yeah, he's a flat earther. He drinks pee. He believes pretty much all the stuff. He's an anti-vaxxer.
So I don't think how does your
okay, all right. Okay, so you might have me there. My theory on that might be wrong then, because I haven't seen the residue for that, right? Because I've just seen...
if you go and look at any old map or globe, it's going to show New Zealand where it currently is right now, which is way to the southeast instead of the northeast of Australia. And honestly, it appears that Australia has moved a little bit north as well. It's so
residue is what they call evidence of Mandela Effect.
Close up to Asia now.
Well,
it's
okay. Yeah, so my theory was the you know, the Earth is really just a puddle that's being melted out as the sun and moon move around the greater Earth. A different puddle gets melted out.
Sorry,
so,
I was just looking at what people were describing. Was he remembering Papua New Guinea? And that's it? That's the whole reason? Because that's kind of funny. Like, it sucks, but that probably is what he did. He confused Papua New Guinea for New Zealand. Huh.
Essentially, the relationship between, you know, the Antarctica and all the land masses will change.
Sorry, I got this globe a while back, and I never actually just took time to look at it. I actually really liked globes as a kid. Just looking at them in all the different places in the world. Funny the things you forget as an adult that are interesting, that as a kid you were really interested in, and were like, if I was an adult and had one of these, I would just spend hours looking at them, and then you don't.
As the Earth changes, but no, if you've got residue that show...
Stone Corbell says, if this phenomenon can change anything after the fact and make anyone believe that it was always like that, how can you be sure of anything? It would be impossible to know anything. Yeah, it's a self-defeating belief that basically would ensure that you could never know anything ever. So what would even be the point of conjecture? Because nothing would be real. It would all be subject to the whim of some thing outside of yourself. Like, if you do away with material reality and rules, then how can you predict or know anything?
The original and
Well, it's not even the residue. We can show, yeah, we can show residue of hand drawings of maps and everything that show it the way we remember. But I'm saying the official record right now, if you go back and look at any old global map, it's going to show it the new reality way, which is New Zealand way more south than Australia.
What's important is no matter what it shows, you think it's evidence that you were right.
So if it was,
Can't be falsified if you think everything is evidence that you're right.
it's not like you're saying, like, I know what you're saying, and maybe it changed because the Earth had changed, but it's not like these things were reprojected in this current reality and New Zealand was changed. It's always been southeast now in this reality.
right. Well,
So how does that happen in the fourth dimension? Who do you think caused that? Do you think it was us? Do you think it was the technology mimicking us? And if so, like, how do the land masses get moved? That's kind of perplexing to me. And same thing with anything to do in our body, obviously. It's much different than changing something that's, a product or a movie or something.
Well, again, I think if they've got access to the whole of time and space, if they've got the technology to go back to specific times and whatever, and have a look, right? Don't you think they'd use it? Don't you think they'd go right
Of course,
back
yeah.
to the beginning of the
course.
forming of this world and say, oh, what does that look like? And what will happen if we make a change here? Yeah. So they can make a tiny
Of course.
change, and it's a butterfly effect. The whole of geology.
So he's definitely familiar with the term the butterfly effect, but decided not to use it. Interesting.
Change, or one part of that geology could change. Yeah, just by kicking a rock into a pool or something, right there at the beginning. Who knows? But I really think it's if we're seeing things on that magnitude, I don't think it's us that's doing it. I think it's them and their technology. As I said, I think it's them with a sawn off shotgun, and we go in when we make a change. We go in and with a scalpel, and we make a tiny precise change. But they go in with just because they're using technology. They just go in and blast this change through our reality.
Do you get concerned, though, at all with the idea that maybe Gordy Rose is coming out and saying these things intentionally to misdirect us and make us think they have this ability for people like us, and it's more the same as the depths of the deception go with, like, the NASA program and the space programs and everything else?
Yes, they could be doing that. I said this could be their technology could be just there to influence us, right? They've calculated how to influence us to make the change for them. I mean, again, I don't know how their technology works, but it's my view that their technology does work, and what it's doing is going back and changing a probability here or there. And the example I gave you with manifesting a car parking space is me going and changing a tiny probability in your life, right? That makes no difference to you, right? But changing that probability, changed reality for me, and maybe tiny other, very tiny changes in everybody else's reality, right? But they're so tiny that we don't notice them.
The messages that you felt were clear messages that you were getting through the music, where do you think those messages were derived from?
Okay,
Who
well,
conjured up those messages?
I don't think I'm talking about the same thing you're talking about, right? In this case, I was
he had
shown
that PowerPoint last week we
something.
watched part of, where he was trying to explain how he thought the universe came into being.
And it just happened to
Same
be
guy.
a song.
Uh-huh.
and something in me recognized it or told me it was important.
DM Trey says, thing I noticed, it seems like he feels like X is happening, so he needs to work backwards to justify what would be needed to do X. Yes. We were talking about teleological thinking earlier. This is very much that. He is working backwards. He thinks a thing is happening as a result, so how do we get to that result? What would cause this result? Why this result? I don't know. It's very strange. It's very, very strange.
Important enough for a young guy in his 20s to...
He's doing what a lot of conspiracy theorists do, which is motivated thinking. He has a feeling that he wants to justify, so they project that feeling outwards. They give it a name, a story, a narrative, some fictive provenance, and then they make it an enemy, and then they explain everything around that. They are externalizing their own feelings, giving them form and name, and fighting them. It's very strange.
To want to memorize every word, and not only every word, every intonation, so that I'd recognize that voice when I heard it again, and recognize it as important. So it wasn't actually the music. The music was just a transport for this information. And yeah, I think we get things like that. We call it synchronicity. We get information
Exactly.
it's important
I'd
to
call
us.
it syncretism.
And we recognize it
derogatory
as important to us because of what it means. An example is an example I like to give. Okay, so I found some significance in eclipses. Okay, so there's a couple of eclipses. We're coming up to one significant one in April. So I decided to look at all the eclipses. So I had a web page where it listed all the eclipses throughout known history, and so there were hundreds of these eclipses. So I'm looking down them, and I don't know what to look for to find a significant one. And then I saw one which was on my birthday. I was like,
wow.
Okay, there was an eclipse on my birthday in 1831.
Okay.
In fact, tomorrow's my birthday. Shouldn't really.
Oh, happy 30th birthday, Dave.
Yeah. I don't celebrate birthdays, but anyway. So on February
Then why did you bring it up?
12th, 1831, there was an eclipse across America. Okay. So I was drawn to have a look and delve into that particular eclipse. And it turns out the eclipse in that year went over a particular path across America. And it went over where
He was joking. He's over 30.
the Nat Turner slave
However, I am turning 30 on the 12th.
rebellion happened. Okay. So it went over where that rebellion started, and it followed the path of the rebellion.
Oh, God fucking damn it. Oh, Dave, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this.
So the rebellion went, the people who were rebelling sort of followed a path going towards a particular place. That place happened to be Jerusalem, a place called Jerusalem, where there was an armory. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't mean that. I understand what he meant. Okay.
Now, on August 21st of that year was the rebellion.
I do have Logan's Run, yes.
21st is a very particular date, and it was that date linked to what I was actually researching. So that synchronicity was there for me to see, right? Yeah. And it was on that date, so that date might not have been important, but maybe because I was asking for information, that eclipse happened on that date so that I could see and get that information I needed to get. I know it sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't sound crazy at all. I mean, so many people in this community experience these types of synchronicities. We talk about this all the time.
but that synchronicity has to be something that relates to you specifically so that you know that it's a synchronicity. Otherwise, it's just, meaningless information.
He literally just admitted that what it is nonsense, basically. Find something that's related to you personally. Like, yeah, you could do that for anything. There's a lot of years that have my birthday, every single one, in fact. If I go back hundreds of years, thousands of years, I could find some historical thing that happened on a March 12th somewhere. But that's not significant to me or anyone, really. You're just talking about things that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we did this show today, you had reached out to me by email, maybe even just like a week ago or something, and said that you have recently taken a couple of updates and you wanted to talk about it. So why don't you describe what you meant by take updates and what that means to you? Because that's also something I talk about a lot on this channel. In fact, like we talk about the Mandela Effect update, where like you'll bring up something to somebody, ask them a question, and they'll show that they remembered the old way, but then once you tell them that something's changed, oh no, I must have just been misremembering. I've also had experiences, Dave, I'd like you to comment on, where I have seen what I consider almost like a brief possession that people go under when you're about to open their eyes to this. I had one particular example with this piano bar player. He was at the piano bar on stage playing the piano. I tried to get him to play a couple Mandela affected songs, and he ended up telling me I wasn't going to get any salvation in his church, which was.
I really wonder what the rest of that story is, because there are gaping holes in that story. I can hear the whistling through them.
Really, really strange. And I think that, in my opinion, all of us, people like yourself and myself, are less prone to this type of what I deem almost like a possession, but it seems like we're constantly observed, and in a timely fashion, people's consciousness or their soul, or however you want to word it, something can jump into them and kind of block them from seeing the fluidity of this realm. What do you think about that?
Okay, well, as far as the updates are concerned that I was telling you about, I've pretty much covered them because in different ways. That
Okay.
As I'm looking at this talk I was putting together, right, it started going off one way, and as I'm putting it together, this stuff came, and it's like, no, it's about this. So yeah, I've covered a lot of what I've been, I was thinking about when I was talking to you. But if you remember, because my talk is based around the film The Matrix, right? Because there's a lot of metaphors and a lot of truth in that film beyond what most people see when they see it.
I don't know who the guy he's talking to is. Let me see if there's a link. Dose of Reality with Brian Staverly. Another conspiracy show, seems like.
When I go and see it, again, it's about level of consciousness. So there's a bit in the film where Neo and Trinity are on top of the rooftop there, and he looks at the helicopter and says, "Can you fly that?" And she says, "I will in a minute." And she goes, "Tank, give me a helicopter program." And she's like, now she can fly a helicopter. Yeah. I think that sort of thing happens all the time.
Why? You saw it in a movie, so you think it happens?
Yeah.
I do too.
That we ask for things and we get a download. It might not be as instant.
Let's see. Harold Elberman says, "Hannah, I'm sorry if this bit of literal history is TOS. I'm just so toweringly pissed. Jesus Christ. After his execution, Turner's body was dissected and flayed, with his skin being used to make souvenir purses. In this rebellion, the eclipse was a birthday present to you for your enlightenment? From one black man to another, fuck you." Thank you, Harold Elberman, for your thoughts.
Taking in
Because, yeah, he's narcissistic.
information on things. I've talked about it. I've taken information on stuff in some sort of update because I know I didn't even research it.
Yeah,
It just
it's
came
like,
to me.
there's stuff that you don't know how you know it.
No, I don't. Do you mean having ideas?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it happened to me a lot when I was a child, right? I remember I'd have to lie about it. Okay, somebody would ask me something, and I would tell them, and I'd have to say, "Oh, it's because somebody told me the other day." That was a lie because I didn't know how I knew what I knew.
Okay, you can forget learning something and still retain the information. Like, I don't remember when I learned 2 + 2 = 4, but I know that.
I just knew it was right. Right, so because it was a kid telling somebody this, and it was just, you know, pretty.
Does he know you can deduce answers? Like, you can figure things out based on information you have. That's not magic.
Not very confident kid as well. I had to lie and say it was somebody else who told me, and you know, I got it from this source, and it didn't just come from my intuition. And just think about the word intuition, inner teaching, inner tuition. It's an inner knowing, and we all have this inner knowing because we can reach into the whole of time and space and ask it for information. And depending on how open you are to it, or what cultural and experiential context you have, that information is going to come to you. Somebody told me the other day, a while back actually, that it's like a vacuum. When you ask a question, you create a vacuum in the universe, and that vacuum has to be filled. So that answer is going to come to you.
That's a terrible... No. Answers to questions don't just come to you because you ask. What are you talking about? That's such bad advice.
You know, you see it, you recognize it for what it is, and it will try and make sure you recognize it by being a synchronicity, by being something that, you know, is specific to you for you to take notice of. Right? But it will come to you.
100%. I think I've said this many times. I'll take intuition over so-called intelligence any day of the week.
And how's that working for you?
Yeah, it's knowing. It's not believing anything. It's an inner knowing. I had.
What do they think knowledge means?
Experience. I put it in my book actually. But one day I had, or one night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a nosebleed I had a nosebleed from hell. It was gushing out of me. I couldn't stop it. Okay. So you know, I stuffed cotton wool up my nose, and I was thinking, well, I've just got to try and get to sleep. I'm going to work in a couple of hours, so need some sleep. So I stuffed cotton wool up there, and I put my head down on my pillow, try to get some sleep. But the moment I put my head down on the pillow, the back of my neck started to get hot, and it got hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter until I had to just get up, and I was like, oh, what's going on? So being a child of the you know, the technology, I went to Google, and I was like, you know, I put in nosebleed, burning sensation back of neck, going through the results, and one stood out to me, and I clicked on it, and it said to cure yourself of a nosebleed, put a cold flannel on the back of your neck. So I put the cold flannel on the back of my neck, the burning went away, the nosebleed stopped immediately. So my intuition was saying, put something cold here.
No, it wasn't. That's something you found on the internet. What are you talking about? You found a thing on the internet. Your body wasn't telling you that. You felt warm and then happened to find a thing that said make your neck cold. That's not your body telling you to do that, you idiot. Oh, God.
But I didn't recognize it as anything, you know, worthwhile. And, you know, because I didn't have the consciousness level for it. And I got the message when somebody else on Google told me to put something cold there. Right. So this is
It's
real.
the
This
opposite of intuition. You got that information from outside of yourself. On Google,
is something that
you are post hoc trying to claim that it was intuition trying to tell you to do that. It was not.
we do all the time, but we don't recognize it because, you know, this society tells us not to regard it.
Totally. 100%. So let's use the helicopter example, right? Dave needs to fly a helicopter, and you're going to ask the universe for the information or whatever, however it's going to go down, where you're going to take this update. And it doesn't have to be something as extreme as all of a sudden knowing how to fly a helicopter, but let's just use that example. Who uploaded the information for you? Is it the universe was sentient? Was it somebody with a computer that uploaded it to you that reacted because they were in the fourth dimension and observed what you were asking for? Was it God? Was it Satan? Like, where do you think that information comes from?
Satan famously wants to help people fly helicopters.
Those updates.
Well, we have access to the subconscious mind, right? It's not your subconscious.
It was Cypher. Weren't you paying any attention?
Mind or my subconscious mind. It's the subconscious mind.
So you're kind of just like,
oh fuck, Carl Jung,
reaching out and grabbing the information that's already there, ready to be
the
plucked.
information is there. Again, this universe is a universe of mind stuff. It's information, right? Held in an infinite mind. Okay. And so we have direct access to it, right? It's not conscious access as, you know, as we have in this world. We consciously want to move this glass from here to there. Yeah. So we think, okay, I want to move this glass. I will use my hand, which is a metaphor, to move it from here to there.
Your hand is not a metaphor. Your hand is a fucking material object, as is the glass or vase or whatever that you're moving. It's not a metaphor. Stop using metaphor when you mean the opposite of that.
It's just information changing. As it says in the Matrix, there is no spoon.
Because in the Matrix there wasn't a spoon because they lived in a virtual reality. We don't. So there is a spoon if you have a fucking spoon. The spoon is a spoon. If you have a spoon, it's a spoon.
We think, you know, can we bend a spoon? Well, there is no spoon. It's just information about a spoon. And if we change our view of that information...
I want to throw information about a spoon at his head.
Then that spoon's bent.
Don't worry, there's no spoon. You said it, right?
Yeah, yep. So it's not that it's the Most High doing it. It's we're accessing the Most High and asking for a change.
I feel the Most High and I am sober.
In the pattern. Right? And that change will come because we're asking for it.
I like it. You said you've been talking about the fourth dimension recently in some of your talks that you've been doing. Is this kind of new for you, interjecting this ideas?
Well, I think I've been on this journey because, okay, when I found out about 9/11, right, I basically asked the universe, the Most High, you know, I want to know the truth. What's the truth? And everything that's happened from that point onwards has been in the context of finding out what the truth is. So, yeah, I've stuff has been coming to me, and if you look at it, actually, if you go and look at my videos in chronological order, you can see my thought process as I'm discovering stuff and talking about it. You can see how my mindset and maybe my consciousness level has been changing all throughout. So my year before last, my favorite talk to give was called Navigating the Matrix, the one you heard in Las Vegas. But the next one along from that was how the Most High created the universe. It's like the next piece of the puzzle was being given to me. And it's funny because I had a cannabis journey, right? Or actually the one I just mentioned.
Drug trip. You had a drug trip.
To you about being pushed into this reality. Okay. So let me finish the story.
Yeah.
I wish I could get pushed out of this reality.
So I was being pushed into this reality and I was going, wow, this is amazing. Right. And I knew there was more coming on the other side of that reality. So part of me was like, wow, this is amazing. But as I was going through into this new world, another part of me went, no, don't go. If you go, you're not going to come back. So it threw me out of the trip. So I kind of closed my eyes and went back into it. Excuse me. Closed my eyes and went back into it, and it threw me out again. And the third time I went into it.
If you do not know and recognize that drugs are drugs that fuck with your brain, don't do drugs. If you think drugs literally take you to another dimension or do magic, you are the last person on the earth who should be doing drugs. Do not do drugs if you think they work like this. You should not be doing drugs if you think this is what drugs do. You are ill.
I was in somewhere different. I was in a conference room, and there was all these parts of me and the cannabis all sitting around a table. And they said, okay, he can't take all this information all at once. It's too much for him. What are we going to do? And I was like a little kid, you know, running around the table going, I want to see though. And they weren't listening to me. They all decided that instead of giving me all this information in one go, they're going to sort of cut it up into, you know, bite-sized manageable chunks and give it to me, you know, as soon as I absorb the
You're like, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to hear it.
Yeah, Dave, I was ready to get it all and all at once, but obviously it was just, it was too much for me. So, so yeah, once they decided, I was in somewhere else and I started getting the little pieces, and my journey, and you can see through the videos I've been putting out, has been absorbing one chunk of this information and you know, putting it out as a video, which is an exercise for me to understand it myself, right? You know how it is when you start to understand something when you teach somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think it's so important and so cool that we all document us going through this amazing journey that we're on. I mean,
absolutely. That's what it's all about. We're here to help each other. Yeah. So yeah, you can see that I've been getting pieces of this information and building on it so that I can understand and conceptualize, you know, this what I'm finding out. Again, it's
yeah, I don't know what happened to his camera.
This is another one of his talks I heard the other day again, and now only now that I understand it. He calls it the process of standing more, being able to stand more when you get into that hallucinogenic trip, right? It's a process of being able to stand more, not stand more in terms of dosage, but stand more in as much of as
withstand more of
this content that we can't.
It's more of the substance. Jesus Christ.
Assimilate. It's too much. It makes us freak out if we got too much of it. So yes, this is the process I've been on, and after you know, how the Most High created the universe, the next step is this next talk, which I've entitled it "Becoming Neo." This next talk is the next step up from how the universe was created.
Do you think that in order for us to say basically manipulate the fourth dimension, kind of like, you know, we were.
Have I seen Altered States? No, I have it. I plan on watching it. I haven't seen it yet. I know the plot. They take drugs and return to monkey. I'm familiar.
Kind of talking about maybe, you know, like we're causing the changes in the fourth dimension. Do you think the dreams are an access point to that for us? Is there something we should be doing in the dream state that will give us that access to the fourth dimension? Because it would seem like it goes hand in hand to me.
Actually, when you dream, yes, you do access the fourth dimension. But what you're doing when you're dreaming is you're picking out parts of your future and your past.
This whole stream has made me, like, really upset and mad, and it's completely unfair, because I know what being delusional is like, and I know it's, like, not their fault, and it's filling in for some need that they have, or some psychological desire. But it really just makes me want to shake them and be like, please wake up. Like, this is not how the world works. Like, you are wasting your life. You have a finite amount of days to live, and you are wasting it on nonsense. Please stop. So we've been going for like 3 hours. I think I'm done for the day. I'll be back tomorrow. We're gonna do a stream a little earlier in the day because it's the last of the month. We're gonna do VHS Vault, early 2000s, so from like the year 2000 to 2009. We're gonna be covering that era, VHS Vault. So that'll be fun. Love you too, Mr. Blast. I'll see the rest of you tomorrow, hopefully. If not, I'll see you soon. See you tomorrow, Halloween Town. Have a good night. And that's it. So, see you guys later.